Alrighty, awesome. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in your sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. Hello, how's everybody doing? Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, osayo, ohio. I see you. Thank you for being on. Kamsa, kamsamida. We're grateful to have you. Hopefully you're at peace. Namaste. Shalom, Anai Kofi, or Bakwartav. Shalom, Anai Kofi. Shalom. Hello to everybody. Also, I'm sorry, Aquaba, Etesen, Jambo, Habari, Mimini Kofi, Nina Faraka Kutana Nwewe. I am excited and grateful and thankful to say hello to everybody again today. Once again, we give all praise and honor. I'm sorry, I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We give all honor and praise once again to the Most High, Chava Alachim. We give all praise and honor to him. For my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we're thankful and grateful for what the Most High is doing in her life and is doing to help the diaspora. We thank you those who are helping her in that endeavor to make sure that our diaspora continues to be healthy. We are thankful to everybody, to the moderators and ministerial staff, to SOC, to the diaspora, to those that agree with us, disagree with us. It's your first time on, one time of many, whatever the case might be. Regardless if you're on the podcast, if you're on later on Facebook, if you're on YouTube with us, if you're on TikTok, whatever the case might be, we're excited, we're grateful, and we're thankful to be with you all again. Hello, Shalom. How you doing? To everybody, how you doing, Sister Marion? Praise Yah for you and praying for you guys continuously. And thanks for joining us. You didn't have to, but we see your heart. We thank you. We appreciate you. So we're going to get back into Code Breakers. We were in Deuteronomy 28 yesterday. If y'all want to go back over there with me, we're going to be going back over to Deuteronomy 28. This is part 2 of this Code Breaker series. And yesterday, Baba Kasha, it's my pleasure, sis. So Deuteronomy 28, we got to support the big sis out here. So Deuteronomy 28, and we stopped around, what was the verse? I said somebody's going to have to remind me because we took time out to make sure that we prayed for our sister. Okay, yeah, I don't think that so we didn't make it through verse 48. So we'll start at Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48. Lamech, you still have questions? Well, we were asking yesterday, I think, right? Then we say go ahead, put the question in there. I didn't know what we'd be able to do. I don't even know where it was, but Lamech. And I said, are you talking about Lamech, Noah's father? Or are you talking about Lamech as far as the word? Or, what were we speaking about or whatever? Or if we're talking about Lamech, the actual original thing or whatever. So yeah, so feel free to put questions and comments in the chats on all these different platforms. I may or may not be able to answer you right away, but I'll do my best to answer you. Before we get into this, though, let's say hello to everybody real quick before we get started. How you doing? Talking? How you doing? The Hut? How you doing? Doll I Am, Sunny Ray, Sister Marion, Sister Barbara, Vandy, Carrie Sweet Treats. What is this? Read John 3:16. He loves us so much. Aman, Elohim did love us so much that he gave us his bar or ban, Yashfai. I got to get a new phone. Okay. Elion, how you doing? Sister Beverly, Money Green. Oh, you just saying random stuff. Okay. How you doing, artist? How you doing, Sister Deja? By the way, go check out Sister Deja's channel and support her, help her out as she's trying to make sure that she shows her products. She has great stuff that she's able to make and is doing a lot of stuff as an entrepreneur. You can learn some things about the entrepreneurial spirit experience over there. Sister Cherise, Julius, thanks for being on. Rock and Roller, Nay, Big Ock. Oh, thanks. Big Peaches, Old Head Energy, and Rock and Roll. Thanks for being part of the community, by the way. How you doing? I reckon the Sharama. I don't know if I said that correctly or not. Thanks for being on, though. We appreciate you. Oh, well. MS Day, I try to check in with you, see how you're doing. Maybe we even pray during this or towards the end or something like that. I'm not sure, but we'll come together. How you doing, Black Wolf? Seems to be a spirit creeping around with that in mind. Sister Deborah, how you doing? Carla, Brother Alton, if I didn't say so already, is Oapu or Oapu. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. OAUPL. Anubis. Oh, okay. Your whole thing is to say that you don't need to know anything outside the Essence Nucleus group and all that. Okay, cool. Or if you'd like to be able to listen to a certain context or something like that when we go over it, you're more than welcome to. But we thank you for giving us, what it is that you have. The Bible's changed a ton. There's chance to change the ton. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people have changed it. Learn how to, we should learn how to read the original. It's just like English is not the original language that's spoken today. Learn it, and we might be able to get etymology of certain words, whether it's Middle English, ancient, things like that, of course. People have changed a lot. They're still people, but in essence, you're still that child while being a child eternally, right? Where time stands still or time is a blip on the radar, eternally you're a child while you're an adult, right? So, yeah, we should know the original, know thyself. Right. The problem is not that somebody's rewritten it over and over again. The problem is that we never even knew the origins of it. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the origin, the principality, against the kingdom origin, principality. That's what it breaks down to. At least the word they use for it in the Bible before somebody switched it to Greek and then switched it to Latin and then switched it to, whatever various languages it's written in now. So, but thank you all for being on. We appreciate you. We're gonna talk today once again about. Remember, we come from a cultural perspective, so this might be a cultural perspective that's not for every. Matter of fact, it is a cultural perspective that's not for everybody, because if something's cultural, if something's of you, if something's of your people, it's something that you live, right? Or it's something you might decide not to live, but the culture determines, a lot of your actions. Cultures leads to beliefs. Beliefs lead to, so your culture is going to lead to your belief system. Your belief system is going to lead to your emotions. Your emotions, when you have an emotional state and certain motions of the brain and all that going on long enough, you're going to start to feel a certain way, right? Your emotions and your gut, what's going on with emotions to the health of your gut are going to then inform your feelings after a while. Your feelings, if you feel a certain way long enough, is going to inform your mood. Your mood is going to definitely inform your effort or energy on something, and your effort or energy on something is going to basically get us to a place to where you're dealing with what? Your habits, and your habits therefore become a culture, because something for a whole new generation. Right? Like that's what we're dealing in. Right? It's like literally, so when we talk about this cultural aspect, a lot of people are emotional about it because they believe something that might not necessarily be attached to the people of the culture who taught this. So going back to stuff Deuteronomy 28:48, and when you guys just have it, just go ahead and say amen or I'm with you, etc. in the comment section. Hello, how you doing, Sister Helen? Yeah, so just say amen, I got it, I'm with you, etc. in the comment section. Even if you're on the podcast and you're watching this or listening to this later on, or if you're on YouTube watching this later on and you want to put in the comment section anyways, just let us know that you were rolling with us. We appreciate it anyways. We don't want to move before you guys actually have the scripture, if we can, at least as far as everybody. How you doing, Sister Nakia? How you doing, Marlene? You with us? All right, amen. So we're gonna start there. And today we're not just talking about. So yesterday when we talking about, where the series is code breakers. We started off by saying, is it necessary to break the code? Is there even a code, right? And so we talked about that. Today we're gonna focus on developing, or not even developing. What's the word? Well, we're gonna focus on today on learning the code, right? Learning the code. Because learning the code is going to take a little time, right? If I say developing the code, we actually get into a place where we're saying like we're starting from scratch or we're trying to do, but the code has been there. So the question is not, is the code there? The code is, the question for a lot of people is, how do I learn the code? How you doing, Chris? Oh, thank you, Dehat. Appreciate you. Right. So learning the code is valuable. Learning the code. We need to learn the code. So let's start where we left off yesterday. Right. So Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48, it says this. It says, therefore, shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Adon, or which Yahweh shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. How you doing, Sister Barbara? If I didn't say so already. Learning the code. Learning the code, extremely important, right? It's extremely important to learn this code, to know what's going on as far as the code, right? Why? Therefore, because you're in the curse, because you're going through this code, because you haven't become code breakers yet, because you haven't become code breakers, leading you to become curse breakers, because you have not done these things, right? Because of what started all the way back in Deuteronomy 28, starting in verse 15. We started at verse 40 or verse 41 yesterday, right? But because of all these things that have happened, thank you for the love, appreciate it. Because of all these things that have happened, therefore, that's what therefore means. Because of these things, because whenever there's a therefore, we always try to train people. Whenever you see a therefore, think wherefore. If it says therefore, it means where did it come from, right? Wherefore. So the for is before or in front of, right? Before and then where. So before where, basically, wherefore. So before we're here, before we get to this location, before we're trying to talk about what we're talking about in the code today, because of all those things that we talked about, therefore, thou or shalt thou, that means individual, by the way. Because remember, this is not for everybody. Thanks again for love. Remember, this is not written to everybody. So remember, whenever you see you, ye, stuff like that in your Bible, especially if you're dealing with King James nowadays, you've got more changes to the language. The language basically changes every 20 years or so, right? At bare minimum. Nowadays, you probably fast track it every 10, maybe even 5 years. People are just throwing so many different new words out and not giving a thought of what the words actually used to mean when people spoke in just a generation before them. However, when you use when you see these words back then, especially in the English, especially in the 1611 King James Version and the King James Version, and even somewhat in the New King James Version, they kind of got rid of it in the NKJV. But when you see King James or original King James, and how you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Mind. Check her out once again on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. So when we get to this place where we're talking about today in Deuteronomy 28 and verse 48, all right, and we're talking about these things and becoming the curse breaker, it says, therefore, so therefore, because of these things, therefore, right, we shall do what? Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies. We don't know how to break the code. So it tells us that we shall serve our enemies, right? We got to serve our enemies, which Jehovah shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in all things. We are hungry and we're thirsty and we're naked and we are in want of what? All things. Thank you, Stefan. Appreciate that. We are hungry and thirsty and wanting and naked in all things. And we started off with this yesterday before we kind of tailed off some and got ready to take our leave. The nakedness. Oh, okay. Nakedness is something that you should never be seen in. The only reason people see you naked is because you're in sin. User 1489, what is it that you'd like to discuss? If you were saying that you want to go and look at something else completely different, then that's fine. Or you want to say that you know something that I don't know, that's fine, I guess. I guess that's what you're trying to get to. It doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about right now. Lamech, okay. Okay, so Lamech, oh, that was the question, sorry. So I'm sorry, I get it. I didn't know that was the same person from earlier. I apologize. I just kept seeing. So who's I mean, you need us to answer the question right away. Okay, we can answer that right away, and then we'll go right back into the messages if that's okay. All right. So you can make sure that your question is okay. Give me a second. I gotta brush up on it. Right, and then we can go back into the code. Is that all right? Okay. And even with two-ball cane and stuff like that, like, well, I, you know what? I'll try to see if I can look it up in a second because that's not even what we're being let to do right now. What I'll say is this: is that even when it comes to two-ball cane, you have to figure out who you're talking to, what version you're talking about, and what was written. As far as Cain's grandson, number one, just we got to get it right with Cain. Cain was marked. Cain had a tav on him because Cain was disobedient. Cain married a daughter that was always already of the sons of men. There were other men and women that existed at the same time that Adam and Eve existed. Cain goes and he marries into somebody from those tribes. Now, when Cain goes into marries into somebody from that tribe, you have to deal with if you're trying to say, well, Lamech killed him or this and that or whatever. Um, I mean, and I don't even know which Lamech. Once again, that's why I asked you, which Lamech are you talking about? You know, if are we talking about Lamech of Noah? You know, there's multiple people with multiple names. If we're talking about some of the unfinished books, which unfinished book are we getting this from? Are we going to like Enoch? Are we going to the Chronicles of Noah? And it depends on which route we're going in. So I do apologize for not having everything for you here right now. I'll try to brush up on research if I'm able to. When I'm able to, I'm pretty busy, but I will do my best to try and get to your answer. All right, but we gotta get to this today. I gotta be led by the Holy Spirit. It vexes me and messes up the whole flow if I just go outside of the will of Yah. But I do see your question. I'll try to make sure I brush up on it, and then once again, maybe if you can give me more details because you're asking a question that's actually more vast than probably what you think. But that being said, where are we at? Deuteronomy 28:48. Code breakers. And then today, in this series of code breakers, we're talking about specifically what? I'm sorry. Oh, therefore, and we are walking around in nakedness, hunger, thirst, and in want. Now, nobody should see your nakedness, right? Nobody should see your nakedness. Nobody should see at your bare essence except your husband or your mother that raises you or something like that, right? Maybe your father has to help out and do some things with you as well, right? But nobody should really see your nakedness. And when you get married, then your wife should see your nakedness. So nobody should see Israel's nakedness except for Yehovah, right? Nobody should see the nakedness, the way you operate even. Some things people shouldn't comprehend. Remember, we were talking about it yesterday. That is not for everyone to know the mysteries of the kingdom or the code of the kingdom, right? There should be some things that you should be clothed in. This is why, and the version that we talked about even yesterday, what people call um, being modest in apparel does not necessarily mean that you have to be in a long shawl because that's not what your people wear. Even the Bible describes what your women, what our sisters, what women, what Aisha wore, and they did not have to wear these long flowing gowns. That's what you guys think of them today, instead of tunics and stuff, but these long flowing gowns that basically covered them from head to toe. They didn't have to do that, right? They didn't have to make sure their faces were covered. I know there's some of our Hebrew Israelite brethren that would tell me that I'm wrong for saying such, but you won't find a scripture where a woman's eyes are the only things that should be shown, and that's what modesty means. No, that's what control means. That's what being there, right? But we have to do what? We have to start learning the code. We have to go through a process of learning the code, right? That's why you have to learn the code. We're trying to become code breakers, and so you got to learn how to decipher the code. If I'm going to decipher the code, then I must have you said, what about our hair? Must it be covered? Well, if you want to, if it's in style, but you don't have to. When it talks about covering your head, it literally is talking about covering the husband, covering your head. But once again, we're not taught those things, right? So a lot of us in our ignorance or just in plain wanting to make sure that we are over women, we tell them, cover your whole head and stuff. But we had to get to a place once again of learning the code. And once again, we're talking about culture in that. So we walk around naked where people see stuff that they shouldn't see because we don't even realize. And it does say in the Bible as well, yes, that a woman's hair is her covering as well, right? So, and it also talks about that as one of the curses that women would actually deal with pattern baldness because they kept or certain baldness, right, from stuff. And they say it's your DNA, but our sisters, you put all the perm and all the stuff in your hair and things that break it apart, and you always trying to like pull your hair back extremely far back, like, and then you keep trying to pull it back and pull it back and pull it back, and then you're trying to do stuff with the lace front and all that, which actually pulls at the hair and stuff like that. And so our sisters even deal with some of that, right? That's one of the curses. Us doing stuff outside of our culture, leaving ourselves naked, even leaving your head naked if you're not careful, right? Like this thing is real, but it says we'll be naked. It says we'll be wanting, and we'll be wanting stuff, or we'll be. Let's go back. So we're Deuteronomy 28:48. How you doing, Minister Shante? Deuteronomy 28:48. Therefore, shalt thou serve thine enemies. It's a tough place to be when you're serving your enemy. See, you know more about your enemy, and the enemy doesn't teach you his code, but you give up your code to the enemy. Hear what I'm saying? You don't know as much, but you don't know as much about yourself, and you dang sure don't know as much about your enemy. You're totally naked out here while your enemy is modest. They covered up. Matter of fact, we deal with cover-ups all the time, don't we? They cover things up so well that we don't even know how to figure out what's going on. How you doing, Baba Bless? And take time out to follow Baba Bless over there as well. Strong brother, Samson brother, right? Samson type brother, got that strength going on. Go support him and bless him in his endeavors as well. And we praise y'all for him being supportive with us over here. And we don't even know as much about ourselves. Like we're out here naked. We out here, hey, learn our recipes. Hey, learn our culture. Hey, you get to do all these different things. You can't hear me on YouTube. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you guys hear on YouTube? If you got okay, some of y'all, okay, it might be a signal issue there, but you know, everybody knows about us. Of course, everybody knows about us, but what do we know about others? Everybody knows about us, but what do we know about others? What's coded? An obelisk sitting in Washington, D.C., an obelisk sitting at the Vatican, an obelisk sitting in Memphis, Tennessee. Like, what do we know about? Why are we ignorant to that? We talked about this last night. What is the quote from last night that we went over? When the truth is replaced by silence, then that silence is a lie. That's what we talked about last night. When the truth is replaced by silence, and silence is a lie. And yet we're out here loudly showing ignorance and showing our state and showing our lack thereof of culture, naked out here, wanting something that can help us, hungry and thirsty and just in want. Somebody help us. We need help with everything. Give us reparations. Give us land. Why don't you do this for us? But when it comes to your enemy, there's a cover up. They're modest. They don't share everything with you like that. And if you're going to come in and they're going to show you some of the stuff, you're going to give up some of yourself. You're not just going to come in here and be whatever you want to be. You're going to come in here, you're going to act like us. You're going to have IQ. The intellectual quotient is going to be based off of the Eurocentric value that comes from, manifest destiny type things leading back to Linnaean type ideals. You said you're right. We can't fight a battle against the enemy we don't know. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. When I was in the military, if we were going to go fight against somebody, Sister Mona, if we were going to go fight against somebody, we had intel. Right? You don't send the SEALs out. Matter of fact, the SEALs, as much as it sounds crazy, they'll get more intel than you do because they have to do things deeper within. So if you're going to use Navy SEALs, right? Any kind of recon, but if you're going to use recon, Navy SEALs, excuse me, if you're talking about Army Rangers, whatever the case might be, when you the Green Berets, when people go in to do a certain thing, the CBs, whatever, when people go in to do a certain thing, you better be ready. Thank you for the love, appreciate it. And how you doing? Shalom to you, Jacob, if I didn't say so already. Right, when you go in, you better have some reconnaissance. Do you know your enemy? Do you know how they move? Do you know how they function? Do you know how many clicks, right, this way, clicks that way? Are you prepared? Have you been trained to run point? Don't run point, right, if you ain't ready for this. Can you bring up the rear, right? If you're on the ship, do you know how to make sure, so one person, not everybody's trained to do radar, not everybody's trained to be on the guns, not everybody's trained to make sure that they can maneuver, not everybody's trained to make sure that the core and everything is all right. Like, not everybody's trained to do these things. Not everybody can even be in certain places at the same time, depending on your status. We have to have intel even of how each and every individual is doing. That's why that you shouldn't be having sex and stuff on the ship, right? Especially, well, any kind of sex, male, male, female, female, male, female, but even male, female more so than the other ones. Why? Because male, female on the ship, if a sister gets pregnant on the ship, right, it's going to be a problem. She could lose the baby, could get really sick, and definitely can't do it on the subs. That's why you don't really have women that are allowed on subs like that. People think it's a thing of hating against women, but if you don't know the culture of it, you won't realize that if you're going to be a nuke and you're going to go into a sub and a woman gets pregnant, they got to stop everything right then and there, which means that they got to come out the mission, and maybe they even get caught making a move that they shouldn't have been making because somebody decided to do something outside of the law or outside of the rules. The laws used to protect the rights, and here we are naked even of laws. You'll follow the law that says stop at the red light. How you doing, Lion King? You'll stop at the law that says stop at the red light, but you have no law for yourself to protect you. So you'll protect others from you and protect your vehicle, which hopefully protects yourself, but you won't do those things for yourself. You said a woman could die on sub due to pressure underwater. Yeah, most definitely. Right? The woman could die. The baby obviously then would die. The baby would probably die first, and then the woman. So there's things that are put in place. But see, we're naked. We're out here unprotected. And it says, so we're naked, we're hungry and thirsty. But here's the blessing. Those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. We just came out of that series, Sermon on the Mount. So those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, they shall be filled. Stop getting empty calories, hungry and thirsting for somebody else to help you out and to bless you. So you can get past the curses. The way to get past the curses is to hunger and thirst after righteousness. Now, what is righteousness? Righteousness is as filthy rags. So it's your righteousness, but Yahweh's righteousness is what? Right, lawful standing. That's what the word righteous breaks down to. Hey, how you doing, Duet Ninja? I was just thinking about you the other day, bro. It's been a while since I reached out, and haven't been traveling as much, so I haven't had a chance to even reach out to you, but hopefully you're doing well. Please go check out Duet Ninja, by the way, and follow, great brother to follow. So yeah, those of us who hunger and thirst after righteousness, after right lawful standing, they shall be filled. Right? So before we start looking for everybody else to do something, what is lawful? Do you know common law, law of equity, right? Admiralty law, maritime law, substantive law, public law, private law? Are you in a position to speak on law? Or do you just keep saying, oh, we shouldn't follow the law? Like, you follow law every day. You follow natural law every day. You follow some of y'all follow the law of attraction, but say you shouldn't follow the law. It doesn't make sense. Even theories, anything theoretical, scientifically or otherwise, anything theoretical, in order for it to be a theory, it has to be able to be something that can at least somewhat be backed up by law. That's actually, if it can't be backed up by law, we're supposed to throw the theory in the trash. Right? Like critical race theory, it is still a theory, but is there anything lawfully we can look up to say, oh yeah, critical race theory is something that we can at least pay attention to somewhat? Sure, there is. Now, do I believe that critical race theory has it all together? No. But at the same time, is it something we should read up on and learn from? Is there a lot of great information? Of course. You said, how do you learn law when it was never taught? Once again, yeah, exactly. So we have to begin to get taught. And where are the teachers? Remember, we talked about this, Ezekiel chapter 34. Great question, right? Ezekiel 34, 35, 36, 37. You remember we went through that, and we started in 2nd Esther 6:9. There's this Esau spirit. The Esau spirit is going to lead us to destruction, but the Israelite spirit, right, what Israel is supposed to be about, is supposed to lead us to everything else. And Ezekiel 34, it tells us straight up, we got a pastor or a leadership problem or a speaking problem. How you doing, Sister Raya or Ria? I don't remember. Is it Ria? Is it Ria? Is it Raya? Ria? I apologize for asking that again. But you know, we have a teaching problem where nobody's teaching this word. Right. Then Ezekiel 35, we got an Esau spirit problem. We got to start speaking to those who are coming and teaching us other things that are not appropriate. Then we got Ezekiel 36, we have to start speaking and setting an environment for people to come in, so that Ezekiel 37, once we start teaching this, those dry bones, Yastel will live. Is it Rhea? Are you saying Rhea? Rhea? Is that what we're saying? Or Rhea? Like R-E, I don't know. Is it like R-E-E-A-H? Like Rhea? Is that what we're saying? I'm sorry. I just want to get it correct because once my mind gets it, it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. So, and greetings to you. How you doing? And shalom to you as well. Everybody coming on. We appreciate you. Bakwatah to everybody. So once again, so we have the blueprint. Matter of fact, like once again, Ezekiel 30, or go back to Ezekiel 34, we got a teaching problem. Like Rhea. Okay. So we got a teaching problem. Right? And when we come to this teaching problem, we have a problem here, because nobody's giving us this word. Romans chapter 10. We love to talk about Romans chapter 10, verse 9 only, which is one of the reasons we have a teaching problem, because everybody only teaches partial truths. We don't teach whole truths. Just like the you guys would know Matthew 7:12. Do unto others you want done unto you. That's the golden rule. However, that's not the golden rule, because it's not holistic. It's not holy. It's not the whole thing. So what is the golden rule? According to Matthew 7:12, do unto others as you want done unto you, for this is the law and the prophets. Now somebody will say, no, so it's saying it's the same thing as the law and the prophets. Actually, no, it doesn't say semicolon there, even in English. It actually says colon. So colon means, so if you want to do unto others as you want done unto you, colon, out of that means what? You got to know the law of the prophets. But even go back to Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20, where Yahshua speaks specifically about law for 4 verses in a row, and nobody pays attention to it. And Matthew chapter 5, verse 10 through 12, it says, don't worry when they try to get rid of you, because they did the same thing to the prophets. So Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 says they did the same thing to the law and the prophets, and he didn't come to do the same thing everybody else did. Matthew 7:12, do unto others as you want done unto yourself. Why? For this is the law of the prophets. But people don't like law. Right, but people do the same thing with Romans chapter 10. They don't pay attention to verses 13, and they might give you verse 13, but they definitely won't give you verse 14, 15, and 16 with it in context, and they definitely won't give you Romans chapter 10, verse 1. But this is why we have to be taught the code. We don't have teachers here, right? So we have to learn the code. How do we learn the code if we can't teach the code? At some point, somebody has to learn the code and give it to others the way that it's been given to them by the Most High. Now, how can we prove this in Scripture? Going back to Romans 10. Well, Romans chapter 10, I'm not going to do the whole Roman road, but just in Romans chapter 10, we already got all this, right? Romans chapter 10, verse 1. Paul says, it is still my prayer that Israel would be saved. So wait a minute. Who's supposed to make sure that they're saved? Is this being saved talking about everybody? See, people don't like it when you talk like this now. But are we talking about being saved so everybody can be saved? I'm not saying not anybody can be saved, but they have to be grafted in according to Romans chapter 11, which is going to come after what I'm going to talk about right now. But Romans chapter 10, verse 1, right? Paul says, it's still my prayer that Israel would be saved. Why is that? Why? See, so it's coded because we're already in a place now where we go with everybody. This Romans 10:9 is talking about everybody. If you confess and believe, right, then thou shalt be saved. That's it. Praise Jesus. That's what everybody teaches, right? Let's go to the benediction. We out. That's the invitation. We finished the sermon. We did our hooping. We did the invitation. We finished with the invitation. Let's go ahead and make sure that we out. Right? That's what everybody said. But first things first, Paul says, if you're going to get the context of this, well, what is the context? First things first, it's still my prayer that Israel would be saved. So if you're not grafted in, according to Romans chapter 11 coming after this, where Paul's going to make sure he still fixes this for us, to where we don't think that just because, and he fixed it really even before Romans chapter 9, verse 6, which tells you that not all Israel is Israel. They shouted too. Amen. Right. But Paul says it's still my prayer that Israel would be saved. He said not all Israel is Israel, but he said it's still my prayer. What I pray about when in the midnight hour, when y'all are busy arguing over whether I'm Old Testament enough or New Testament enough, as if Old Testament, New Testament are actually a real thing. He said, well, when y'all finish up all that, he said, when I'm in my secret place, when I'm in my prayer closet, when I'm around and nobody else is able to talk to me, when it's just me and the Holy Spirit, and Yahshua is taking it through what the Holy Spirit says and bringing it to the Father himself. He said, when I'm in some time by myself, he said, it's still my prayer. All right, Sister Alien. Right. He said, it's still my prayer that what? Israel be saved. He said, it's still vital to me. Why? Because Revelation chapter 7 ain't going nowhere. Because Revelation chapter 2, verse 9 ain't going nowhere. Because Revelation chapter 3, verse 7 through 9 ain't going nowhere. And if you would read Revelation 2:9, if you would read Revelation chapter, if you knew what it was saying, you really should read Revelation 1:14 and 15. You should make sure that you read Revelation chapter 2 in verse 6. You should make sure that you read Revelation chapter 2 and verse 9. You should make sure that you read Revelation chapter 2 and verse 15 if you know what Balaam and Nicolaitan doctrine is. And you should read Revelation chapter 3, verse 7 through 9, helping you to discover what it's saying in Revelation chapter 7, helping you to truly discover what it's saying in Revelation chapter 12 about that woman with 12 crowns. The same woman discussing Jeremiah chapter 3, the same woman discussing Genesis chapter 3, or Barashat Gamal. Like if you knew the culture of it, if you knew the code, then you would discover that Paul is saying the same thing. And in Romans chapter 10, verse 1, he's saying it's still my prayer that Israel will be saved. But he said, here's the problem: break the code down. How do we break the code down? What do we need to learn? Why was it necessary that we need to relearn the code? The problem is that Romans chapter 10, verse 2, Paul says that Israel has a zeal for Elohim, but it is not according to knowledge. It's not according to intimacy. So we have a zeal to be righteous, but we don't know the code. That's what it says. Revelation chapter 10, verse 3, right behind it, it says that we used to know the code, but we started getting into everybody else's code. And so we forgot how to read our code. We forgot how to read the law. We forgot how to keep the law. We forgot that we were supposed to be the keepers of it. We forgot what it was to be Yehovadah, to be Judah. We forgot what it was to be Naphtali, right? Or Naphtali. We forgot what it was to be Dan, or Dan, to be God, to be, to be the judge, or to live by judgment. We forgot what it was to be Reuben, to make sure that we could see the Most High for who he was. We forgot what it was to be Shaman or Simeon, right? We forgot what it was to be in a place where we could hear the Most High. We forgot what it was to be Levi, to make sure that we were by his side. We forgot what it was to be Judah, to make sure we prayed. We forgot what it was to be God, to make sure that we were in a place where we could hear the righteous judgments and live by them. We forgot what it was to be Naphtali, to make sure that we were even athletic. Why are we so athletic? And what should we do as athletes to give praise and honor to the Most High? We forgot what it was to be Joseph, to be second in command of all the Kemet. We forgot what it was to be Benjamin. I know I skipped some in there, right? We forgot what it was to be Benjamin, a warrior. We forgot what it was to be those things because we don't really care, because it's not the law that it used to be. That's not what used to make us go. It's not what makes us tick. It's not what makes us excited. How you doing, Minister Sharon? Praise Yah. Bakwatav. How you doing? Right? We forgot what it was. We forgot natural law. We forgot all these different things. So he says, Romans chapter 10, verse 3, Paul says, look, we used to know these things. We used to know the code, but we forgot it. Therefore, verse 4 of Romans chapter 10, he says, so therefore the law, the code, is something we can't read. It's of none effect. It doesn't even make sense to us anymore because we forgot it, or we just stopped teaching it, or we were separated from it, or Deuteronomy 28, we were put on ships, or Deuteronomy 28, you will have children and you will not enjoy them. But praise Yah that the time has come, and now there is. That's one of my favorite beginnings of a declaration. The time is now, and now, or the time has come, or the time is coming even, but the time has come, and now there is where we can get this thing together. We can learn the code. We can break the code, and we can speak to each other in our own code. Right? Somebody brought up yesterday Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go check out, if you don't know who that is, Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., and read some of his works. NEELYFULLER Jr. Read some of his works on code. It will bless your soul. Right? Where he will show you how people have code. By the way, don't forget about Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and what she put out there. FRANCES, Frances Cress, CRESS, and Welsing, WELSING. And go listen to them. Go read their books. Go see the people that have been affected by them. You will recognize that you live in a code every day. Every single thing that you do is attached to somebody's culture. There's a reason why a golf ball is white. There's a reason why a hockey puck is black. And yes, right? It can be, some of it is not as nefarious, but I'm just saying there's some things that are more nefarious. There's a reason why you, at a picnic, you pick an N-word and you have red and white, because the black N-word would hang, and then you would have a white sheet, and then the red blood got on the white sheet. So now you have a red and white plaid type sheet. Everything you do is coded. But because we go around in nakedness not knowing, we have a problem. Amen. 4:20, yeah, John 4:23. The hour has come and the time is now when the true worshipers shall worship the Father. Right. Everything that you're dealing with has a code. Everything you're dealing with. The alphabet versus the alphabet. Godspell, gospel, Godspell. A Germanic deity spell, when you speak it, you call it gospel, because somebody changed the words. So you speak God's spells rather than Elohim's word. Everything is cultural. You talk about firmament, not realizing firmament is a Greek god, and Hakwaya is what it would actually be called. Everything is coded. Right? Everything is coded. You just listened to the other day. Awesome, Mike. Awesome. Hello, how you doing? Slick Rich. Okay. At first I said Rick. I like the change up on there. Right? Like everything you do is coded. Everything that you do is coded. Everything that we say or do is coded. We just don't know the code. So Paul says the code doesn't matter to us anymore because we got into all these other things. Yeah, it makes you cringe when somebody says goodbye. Yeah, because it's coded. And they don't know, and we didn't know. Right? But we're sitting there saying this stuff and then trying to figure out, why don't I feel right during the day? You've been speaking God's spell all day. You've been saying God be with ye all day. You've been saying God morning, the morning of the God. They're literally morning, MOURNING. They tricked you. All they do is take away a letter, and because we don't know their code, they literally put an extra code in there. And so now you got generations of people growing up not realizing that they did something real slick, but just change it. And then we'll say morning doesn't really mean morning. Look up the etymology of the word. You don't have to believe me. Look it up for yourself. Right? So, and all these different things, we're dealing with this stuff, right? And people don't want to talk about this stuff. How you doing, Brother TJ? So we have to be honest about it and what we're dealing with, right? So, but we have to realize that we've got to become code breakers. You have to learn not only your code, but the code of others. So once again, Romans 10:1, so I pray that Israel be saved. Romans 10:2, Israel we have a zeal for Elohim, but it's not according to knowledge, according to knowing him, knowing the code. Romans 10:3. Why? Because we started getting the other codes and we don't know our code anymore. Therefore, Romans 10:4, really the code is of none effect to us, and their code is really of none effect to us if you want to get to it. But Romans 10:5 says, but hey, we come from Moses. Moses declared the code that we should live by. So Romans 10:6 and 7, we're going to use the code, but what now? Be careful. While learning the code, while developing this code, redeveloping this code as a people, be careful, Yashua. Be careful. Because just because we develop the code or redeveloping the code doesn't mean that we didn't used to do the same thing, that we didn't used to say Jesus just like everybody else, that we didn't used to know, we didn't know what yesus and yesu came from, that we didn't know what 603 scoring six actually meant when you wrote out the number of the name and alphabet. Like, we didn't know these things as well. So be careful that we don't judge our brothers and sisters. We don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. You catch that? You catch that? Like, we don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. So be careful. Paul says, like, hey, we ain't got no heaven or hell to put anybody in. So just because we're talking about Israel, and just because we got to get back on track, and just because you learned you a little something, and just because you feel like now you got a degree of knowledge, I mean, there's 15 degrees in the Song of Degrees, there's 360 degrees in the circle, right? So just because you got a degree of knowledge, you got 1 degree, and you sitting up here telling everybody everything, don't smell yourself too much. Yeah, right. Yeah, don't smell yourself too much. Just because you got out the system and you living righteous and you got yourself together and you doing these things. And by the way, just because you're doing it, you still have not arrived, because the same Paul that's giving us this message will be the same Paul that will say, I have not yet arrived. Always remind yourself, I haven't got everything yet. Right? You might need to tell yourself that as much as your motivational cliches that you say to yourself in the mirror and all those things are. And I think that stuff is necessary. But make sure every once in a while you tell yourself too, hey, I have not arrived. I got more to do. So tell yourself, I'm powerful, I'm strong, I'm outstanding, I'm handsome, I'm incredible, I'm all these great things. But don't forget to remind yourself, I have not yet arrived. And that thing I did yesterday, it doesn't mean I can't do something greater today. And it doesn't mean that it's about me. It means it's about my children and my children's children. And for me, I even say my children's children's children, because if my great grands are taken care of, then my grands will certainly be taken care of, right? This is what we got to be honest about, right? We have to have a better conversation. How you doing, Sister Shima? Right? We had to have better conversation that's based off of the word of Yah. Now, how you doing, Sister Tracy? So be careful in this, that you're not so quick to make sure, see, I know how to do this. I know what this word actually means. See, you know what? See, I can't stand it when all these ministers be out here, and they be out in on television and stuff, speaking this word and doing this and telling everybody what's up and all these different things or whatever. You can't stand it. Why? You used to do the same thing. Now, if they're doing it in willful ignorance, then we got a problem. And if they're doing it in ignorance, it's still a problem. But let's not act like, we knew everything or that we know everything. We're learning and growing just like everybody else. People ask questions on here all the time, and my answer sometimes is, I don't know. I'm not the most high. I don't know everything. I wasn't here for everything. I can speak on what I know. What I know, I know. But I have to also be teachable, which means I have to admit there's some things I don't know. And a lot of people can't be taught anything because you're not willing to be teachable. And you won't remember that you needed to be teachable. And since you will remember that you used to have to be teachable, since you don't remember that you used to have to be teachable, you hear what I'm saying? You used to have to be teachable. You did. You used to have to be teachable. And so if somebody else is teachable, it means that they don't know. So we're going to grow together, right? Exactly. And you got to remain, that's right. Because if you can't remain teachable, no one can really learn much from you. Because guess what? Every master is still a disciple. Just because you're going from disciple to master, see, this is how it works, right? Like when you graduate kindergarten and you go to first grade, you're still technically on paper, you're a kindergartner. Y'all don't get that, but that's the way it works. I'm gonna make it make sense. You were in preschool. When you graduate to kindergarten, you're still a now you're a preschooler and a kindergartner, because you still have the knowledge of a preschooler, but now you're in the kindergarten learning to do that. When you finish that, you are and you go to first grade, you are a preschooler, kindergartner, and now you are in elementary school, regular elementary school, the regular first through fifth or first through sixth, whatever y'all do. Right? Why? Because you have graduated being a preschooler. So you have the knowledge of a preschooler, you have the knowledge of a kindergartner, and you have the knowledge of somebody in first through sixth grade. right? Then when you get to middle school, you have to graduate from elementary school. So when you get to middle school, you start saying, oh, I'm a middle schooler now. I'm better than everybody else. No, you're still a preschooler. You're still a kindergartner. You're still a somebody who's in elementary school, but you just so happen now to be learning what it is to be in junior high. But you go from junior high to you go to high school. So you start saying, oh, these junior high people and all that, you know how they were. You just got here yesterday. Like you literally just showed up for the first time. Aren't there people out there calling you freshie and stuff? You a freshman out here talking about these junior high. The only thing that's different between them is a summer and the fact that your mom and dad had bought you some clothes and that you just so happened to show up to homeroom. Up until that happened, you were still a middle schooler and still are a middle schooler and still are an elementary school student and still are a kindergartner and still are a preschool. But don't get it twisted. So you graduate high school, you walk across the stage and you start talking about, yeah, I remember what it was to be in high school. Baby boy, baby girl, you still ain't arrived yet because now you got college. Let's just assume you're getting the bachelor's. So guess what? You a freshman all over. So here you are, a freshman all over, right? You just finished being a freshman in high school, but guess what? You're still a high schooler. You're still a middle schooler. You're still a kindergartner. You're still a preschooler. You're still a baby, even if you want to go there. You're still a son. You're still a daughter. But now you just so happen to be learning the next thing. So you can't keep being you can't become a master, or a master really means we get to the level of teacher. You can teach somebody else something unless you remember that you're still disciplined in what it is that you are. You're still a disciple. You never stop being a disciple just because you go to the next level. The second that you can no longer be a disciple is the second that you're no longer an effective master. I'm not saying you cannot be a master, but you will not be as effective. Yeah, learn how to read the room and stuff as well. Like that's real. That's your hummus wisdom. That's real out here. That's real in the field, right? As we would have said way back in the day. I'm quoting some stuff that might get me in trouble or whatever, right? I grew up on some of that stuff, right? But I'm just saying that's real out here. And we forget that there's levels to this. We forget that there's levels to this thing. Why did we forget that there's levels to this? Why do we forget this? Why do we act like there's no levels? Why do we forget that, hey, the child in you is in the queen in you. The child in you is in the king in you. Why do we forget that? Why do we forget that? Why do we tell everybody ego, of course, and stuff like that? Yeah. Do not forget where you came from. Every master is only a master of what he's disciplined in. That's why he has disciples. His disciples want to become disciplined in what he teaches. So he has to live his discipline and therefore extend what he lives unto those who will become masters. And the goal of every master is to have students that get so great that you have to turn to them one day and say, I don't know if I got anything else I can teach you, at least in this area. You know, that's the goal of every master, to get to a place where it's like, I mean, I might have a few things you don't know, but real talk, like you can beat me up. You know, like I don't know what you're coming here for. And then guess what a great disciple does? The great disciple says, no, master, you'll always be my master. Even if they start another school, even if they go to another level, they still, every time they see that master, what do they say? Master, because they're still disciplined. They didn't stop being in that grade, so to speak, just because they got somewhere. See, so Romans chapter 10, verse 1, it's still my prayer that Israel be saved. Romans chapter 10, verse 2. It's we have a zeal for Elohim, but it's not according to knowledge. Romans chapter 10, verse 3, we got away from the law, and so we don't know how law works anymore, especially the laws of the kingdom. Therefore, Romans chapter 10, verse 4, the law really has no effect for us. Romans chapter 10, verse 5, but we should go back to what the standard of Moses was, Romans 10, 6 and 7, and stop telling people that because they don't do what we do, they're on their way to hell. Give them a chance to get themselves in order. Give them themselves, because at the end of the day, the judgment is not for you, it's for the Most High. I'm not saying you put up with just anything, but at the end of the day, the judgment is not for you, it's going to be for the Most High. But then don't forget Romans chapter 10 and verse 8. Let's read that, by the way, because that one I don't always say that exactly correctly. I want to make sure we get that, especially since we're talking about learning this code. Let's make sure that we get that exactly right. The other ones I'm on point. This one, I'll be honest with you, is a little iffy in my mind. I don't want to be iffy right now, ever really, but especially in this moment. Romans chapter 10, verse 8, it says, "But what saith it? The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. That is the word of faith which we preach." Romans chapter 10, verse 8, literally saying we need to have faith and put trust in the word is near us. This law that we lost, it's near us. It's not far away, it's near us. It's not like some people where Yahshua said they praise me with their lips and they honor me with their mouths, but their hearts are far from me. Right? We're at a place now to where the word is near. The law is near. It's right here, y'all. It's close. We can read it. It's close. We're learning it. We got the culture down. We got ourselves back. We're supporting each other. We're doing this thing correctly. The word is near. In 2023, we're going to look beyond what we see. We think that this stuff is far away, but it's actually in the spirit. All this stuff is around us. Our environment is coming into place. Our virtual environment, even right now, the word is near. So now Romans chapter 10, verse 9, if you would confess Yahshua HaMashiach, Adam, that literally means that word confession there is homologio. It means same logic. You said it's judging different than correction. Well, correction should be done by proper judgment or how the law judges the action. Right? If you go to the restaurant and somebody says, "How do you judge that food?" or whatever, you judge it. There's no sin in saying, "Hey, I asked for well done." That's raw. You can't judge. Only God can judge me. Like, no, you made. Look, I asked for. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know what this is. We know that. Look, there's blood in it. That's not cooked. I asked for well done. Well done. Me. I would have rather it came out crispy because that's closer to the law. How you doing? Off grid. I would have rather had cooked because that's closer to the law. I would have rather had you overcook it and it be to where I can't even bite into. I would have had more respect for that because that's closer to the law. But when you just give me, if we don't say, "Oh, only God can judge me," or you're not the Most High," how dare you? No. Like, there's certain things we can judge according to law. There's certain things that we can judge according to law. Law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. Right? Law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. Law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. Yes, thank you for the reminder. We're well aware that Yahshua is here with us, right? Obviously, that's what we're talking about, right? The lion, the one who's the lion and the lamb, not that whole the what was that the goat thing Kirk Franklin was talking about. Anyways, so yeah, so we have to be in a position where we're aware of that, right? Like, we're aware of these things. Aman. Yeah, even thinking kingdom, it brings you joy because in his presence is full of joy, right? So I'm just here to tell you that the kingdom, the kingdom, the kingdom, that's what it's about. So Romans 10:9, you have to confess. The word confession there, once again, is homologio. It means to have the same logic. It means to have the same logic or to study, right, the same way that the Messiah did. So if you could, because he's the Lord. So Romans 10:1, it's still my prayer that Israel be saved. Romans 10:2, we're not doing this according to intimacy or knowledge. Romans 10:3, therefore the law is not, we got into other people's law and it messed us up. We got away from what the procedures were. So, right, even the culture was. So Romans 10:4, therefore, we're all over the place, and the law is not of effect to us. Romans 10:5, let's get back to the standard of Moses. Romans 10:6 and 7, let's stop being judgmental of other people, else like judging their salvation. You can tell them right from wrong, but don't start telling people they go to heaven or hell, because that's not for you, right? Romans 10:8, therefore we need to make sure we realize that this word is getting closer and closer as we get into the law. So now Romans 10:9, if we confess, if we're willing to have the same logic that was just spoken, because that's the logic that's cut by Yahshua Mashiach. Confession also means to say what has been said or to say what has been done. Oh yeah, we're doing with the whole do not quote Paul thing or whatever. I quote Paul the way that Paul is written. I don't quote Paul the way that people need to make it work for their Old Testament belief, or their New Testament belief, as if Old Testament and New Testament are a real thing. No such thing. It's all one covenant, right? Not just the 66 books either, right? It's one covenant. We should know it all and we should use it properly. So if you're on here to tell me why you don't want to listen to Paul because he's wrong about everything or whatever, we're not listening to Paul correctly, because Paul quotes a lot of stuff, including what we're trying to get to, if you don't mind, because I've already kind of shown how Paul quoted some of this stuff. But nevertheless, so if you would confess the same logic that Yahshua HaMashiach had to have, and you would believe, therefore you could believe what Elohim would raise him from the dead, and you could be a fellow heir to what's happening with him, right? Then don't forget though, because then everybody skips, doesn't even say anything about verse 10, because you have not arrived yet. Verse 10 tells you that you're on to do that. You're still just on your way to righteousness, and you're on your way to salvation. What does that mean, on my way? It means I'm not there yet. If you call somebody and you say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm running a little bit late. I'm running behind a little bit, right? You know, I'm running late. I'll be there in a second. I'm on my way. It means you have not gotten there yet. So he said, you're on your way to righteousness and you're on your way to salvation. What does that mean? Righteousness, you're on your way to right lawful standing. Salvation, you're on your way to being salvaged, to becoming greater than anything you've ever been. How you doing? Truth is life. You're on your way. You're not there yet. You have not arrived, right? But you're on your way, right? Matter of fact, let's not skip. Let's go to Romans chapter 10 and let's read 11 and 12. Right? Let's read Romans chapter 10, verse 11 and 12, which in all honesty, I don't have those memorized as of yet. Verse 11 and 12, it says what? For the scripture saith, whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. Whosoever, anybody who believes on Yahshua HaMashiach, who has the same logic that Paul talks about in Romans 10:1, it's still my prayer that Israel would be saved, but we got to get back to knowledge of him. We got to get back away from other people's laws, and we got to get back to the law so we can have effect. We got to make Moses' law the standard, and we have to make sure that we are not condemning others when we're on our way to learning the code again. That's how we become curse breakers. We become curse breakers because we become code breakers. And so he says we got to have the same logic and confess. And therefore, when we confess, we can believe and we can be fellow heirs to being risen with Yahshua in high places. And therefore, we can be on our way to righteousness and on our way to being to working out our own salvation with fear and trembling, which now verse 11, for the scripture tells us. So for the Old Testament, if you will, tells us, he's going right back to the law. So for the law tells us what? See, they hide it. They just say the scripture tells us, because that's what they want you to hear, scripture, which, by the way, it is scripture, but they're not telling you the script that is written. The script that is written is what? Going back to the law. Thank you for the love, right? So he says for the scripture, but really you could put there, for the law says, verse 11, for the law saith, whosoever, that means anybody, who believeth on him shall not be ashamed. Now, remember that word believeth, because believeth is going to come with culture. So remember that word believeth there. But then verse 12, so this is where people, once again, without using any of the other context we just talked about, now people will quote verse 12 to you. Without using any other context, here go people quoting verse 12. Now all of a sudden, for there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek. First of all, there was no letter J back then, right? Even when the King James Version was originally written. So it wouldn't have said Jew, right? It would have said the Avda, or what you call the Hebrew or something like that. But nevertheless, they have here, for there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek. For the same is Lord over all. The same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. Right? So if you read that by itself and you haven't read all the stuff that came before it, you'll go, oh, okay, so there's no difference. Why are we worried about this or that? There's no inheritance. There's no son of David necessary. You see, like we get rid of this stuff, it messes up everybody on the side. See, when we miscomprehend law. No son of David necessary, no reality necessary, no knowledge of language and culture necessary. How you doing, Sister Monica? None of that is even necessary. How you doing, Shoe Queen, if I didn't say so already, by the way? None of it's necessary. None of it's necessary. But that's not what it says. Remember the context. Romans 10:1, still my prayer that Israel will be saved. Romans 10:2, Israel has a zeal for Elohim, not according to knowledge. Romans 10:3, we started mixing and matching with everybody else. Romans 10:4, so we don't know how the law works. Romans 10:5, but Moses' law should be the standard. Romans 10:6 and 7. Romans 10, verse 6 and 7. We're not judging everybody, though. We don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. Romans chapter 10, verse 8. But the law is close to us, though the word is getting back. It's drawing nigh. Romans chapter 10, verse 9. So if we confess the same logic that Yahshua did when he said, do not think I came to destroy the law or the prophets, but I came that it might be fulfilled. If we confess that same mindset and we carry our own cross and we live by the same law, even though, yes, grace is in there and mercy is in there, of course, but if we, right, and faith is in there. Faith without works is dead, so works without faith is dead. But if we carry the same mindset that they had, or that Yahshua had himself, right, then we can believe that Elohim also raised him from the dead, because that belief leads us to realizing that we're fellow heirs with it. Therefore, Romans chapter 10, verse 10, we're on our way to righteousness, on our way to salvation. Romans chapter 10, verse 11, telling us what? Telling us that that anyone who believes on him shall not be ashamed. Verse 12, there is no difference. Therefore, what? For if you're Greek or Hebrew, there's no difference as long as what? As long as you believe. See, then you got to read Romans chapter 11, which will tell you about being grafted in, which will tell you that even though somebody's not an Israelite, if they would follow Israelite law, custom, traditions, and things like that, and they would really therefore follow the word of Yah, because that's what we should be following. Remember, we got away from it. But if we would come back and confess that logic, let this mind be in you that also was in Yahshua HaMashiach or Mashiach, right? Use that same logic. If you would use that same logic, let that same mind be in you that also was in him. If you would use the same logic, then you will be saved. Right? If you use the same logic and then believe that Elohim could raise him from the dead, that's what it's saying. So now, so there's no difference between the Israelite and the Greek, as long as both of you are following the same law. But then the one who is over all, what is rich unto all that call upon him. Right? He's rich unto all that call upon him, is how that ends. That verse, Salah, right? Salah. He's rich to all who call upon him. But now let's go into verse 13. And let's not forget verse 13. For verse 13 says what? Verse 13 says, so anyone who calls upon the name, a specific name, but anyone who calls upon the name, a specific name, anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord, they shall be saved. We don't even talk about that verse. We just only talk about Romans 10:9. We didn't talk about Romans 10:1. Romans 10:1, Romans 10:9, Romans 10:3, they all talk about being saved. Romans 10:1 is still my prayer that Israel would be saved. Romans 10:9, if we confess Yahshua Mashiach and believe in our hearts that Elohim raised him from the dead, then we shall be saved. And then Romans 10:13, anyone who calls upon the name seems to be important. Anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord, they shall be saved. But Romans 10:14 through 16, but how can you be saved if you don't believe? And how can you believe if you haven't heard this? And how can you hear it if it's not being preached? And how can it be preached when the preachers aren't even sent by the Most High? For how beautiful are the feet of those who are followers of the way, who walk down his path, who follow his ways, his customs, his traditions, his culture, his laws, his commandments, his statutes, his covenant. And then verse 16, therefore, he once again quotes Old Testament. If you believe that there's a difference between, one has to be a whole thing by itself, one has to be another, rather than going together. If you want to believe, since somebody wrote two words, Old Testament, there's that, and New Testament, there's that. But if you believe in that, go back to the Old Testament and go back there to Romans chapter. So Isaiah chapter 43, verse 1. Paul quotes it in Romans chapter 10 and verse 16. Who shall believe our report? Same thing that the prophets were saying. They did not forget it, and they did not leave it behind. And how you doing, Gwendolyn? Thank you for the agreement. All right. He didn't forget. He didn't say we're going to move on with that and forget Yesaiah or Esaias or Isaiah. He said we're not going to forget about them. Isaiah is still asking through Paul, that the ancestor Isaiah, who's not even in this realm anymore, is still speaking a message because Paul has picked it up and won't let it go. Who shall believe our report? And those who are on the podcast, thank you for being on. We appreciate you. Hopefully we'll see you next time. Check out the rest of it on Facebook and YouTube later. We appreciate you. right? For those of the rest of us that are still on here, right? So who shall believe whose report? Our report. You don't have to like it, but it's not everybody's report, because it's not everybody's culture, because not everybody's trying to live this. If you don't want to live it, that's fine, right? That's fine. You don't have to believe it, but it's not yours to report. And that's where people don't like it. It's not yours to report. And people get upset when I tell them that. People get upset when you tell them that. That's why family doesn't like it when you sit up there and you tell them, hey, that's not righteous and this and that or whatever. What they're saying is like, hey, we're not trying to listen to your report. And you have to take it as that. You know what? Yeah, it is my report. Right? Like if you give a report and you get an A on your report, does everybody in the class get an A? Can we break this down? Can we let's get away from this nakedness that we're in? We're learning the code, right? We gotta how do we learn the code, right? That you gotta learn that this is not for everybody. How you doing, Henry? Right? Having been led as I believe, as we believe, right? Like check it out. If you get an A on your paper, does everybody in the class get an A? If you get 100 on your paper, can they even curve the grades if everybody else got 50 and less? They can't even curve it because you got 100. And everybody gets mad. Man, I wish you would stop doing. I wish you would stop studying. If you would just do what we're doing, they would curve the grade, man. Just get a lower grade on purpose. They curve. You ever been in the class where somebody asks you that, ask you something foolish like that? Can you just act stupid, right? Can you just be ignorant for a second? We're trying to make sure that we all can benefit, but you're doing so well. You've learned the code. You've studied. You put in the work. You've learned the code so well. Only a remnant, right? Right? People say all the time, yeah, I heard 3802. We done it. I'm sorry, what you said, babe? You said I've had teachers ask if they could curve as I got much higher score. Wow. Wow, that's terrible. That the teacher would ask that. I didn't even know teachers would even think like that. That's something that's foreign to me. Wow, babe. Like messed my mind up a little bit. Hey, this student is doing well. So since you're doing well, can you dumb it down some? And people, this happens in classes. This happened at SOC University a few times in classes that I teach, where somebody be doing really well in class, and not the students, the other students are asking, but but the student who's doing well will come and be like, yeah, maybe I should. They'll literally like contact me. Maybe I should just not talk that much, and maybe I should, I'm sorry for talking that much and doing that. I just like to study and blah blah and this and that. I won't say anything else. I've had like a few students tell me that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Because in their mind, I don't want to make everybody feel bad, and I get it. But guess what? In our culture, you should be excited if that person's doing well. That should be the first person you calling up and being like, hey, teach me that. How you get that out of that? How many, how can you help it out? And that's what they even say. They want you to dumb it down, right? In churches, they say, keep it simple, stupid, kiss. Keep it simple, stupid, or keep it simple, saints. You're supposed to simplify it because these people are not supposed to be on your level. I'm sorry, what you say, babe? You said they would ask to remove your grade from the average score. Oh, okay. Okay, ask to remove your grade. Okay. I thought you were saying they were asking asking you if it was all right to lower your grade. Like, wow, okay. Whew. All right. I was dumbfounded for a second. All right. Whew. Okay. That helps me some. I'm glad you said that. You said the teachers of your children ask your children not to write so much on their essay. Yeah. Don't go above and beyond. Right. But it's not everybody's report. It's your report, is what I'm trying to get to. Right. You get graded on what you did. You get graded on what you did. That's why cheating is looked at as poorly as it is, because somebody who's cheating is smart enough to find creative ways to copy or just copy exactly what somebody else put, right? Even to plagiarize. Even you're smart enough to be able to find creative ways to try and plagiarize, but you're not going to use that same intelligence that you have to develop it as a discipled person, right? To be disciplined in a code that you're going to be able to do that in for yourself. You say you too, right? So I'm just trying to tell you that it's not everybody else's grade, right? It's not everybody else's culture. This is not everybody else's law. Don't get upset when somebody's like, I don't believe your report. You shouldn't. It's my report. The question Isaiah is asking, the question that Paul is reiterating is not, hey, um, please everybody believe our report. He asked a question, who shall believe our report? Matter of fact, if you were to go one, well, here's a homework assignment for you. We might pick this back up. We might not at some point. Here's a homework assignment for you. Go and read Romans chapter 10. We just read 1 through 16. And once you get into who shall believe our report, go past verse 16 and read who's going to believe it. It's not for everybody. We have this mindset that everybody's going to get this. Amen, Pastor Hamilton. We have this mindset that everybody's going to get. You got to comprehend. Not everybody's going to get it, especially not everybody might get it, not get it when you get it. Hello, demonic fanboy. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Hopefully you're doing all right. So we have to realize, like, not everybody's going to get it when you get it. Not everybody's been taught what it is. Not everybody matter of fact, let's be honest, not everybody cares what you care about. Right? You can talk to somebody who be cheating all day and saying you need to be better and stop treating your wife like that, stop treating your husband like that. You should be better when it comes to treating people with respect. Doesn't mean everybody gonna respect you. Doesn't mean everybody respects marriage. It's not just that people don't even want to be married. People don't respect it. Like, I can see you don't want to be married, fine, you ain't got to be married. But people are disrespectful to marriage. Like, they spit upon it, they trounce upon it. And our belief system is that everybody's going to come to this conclusion that, oh yeah, proper marriage. I'm not even talking about the lawful or the legal stuff. It's not even lawful, but the legal stuff they do, making you connect your marriage to a state, right? I'm talking about what is the actual cultural application of marriage, even within this. Even if you're going to use this against people, which you shouldn't be using it against them, you should be using it against sin and against the enemy, right? You shouldn't be using it. Put it this way: you shouldn't be using it to beat people upside the head with a word, right? And tell them why they're not on your level, because once again, none of us are righteous, no, not one. Your righteousness, your right lawful standing in your head is as a period rag, as a filthy rag that women used to be able to make sure that when they were bleeding, that they could keep what was unclean away from everybody else. You carrying uncleanliness around, talking about your uncleanliness that you carry under your pocket. Your book that you wrote, your mindset that you have, your paperwork that you got graded on is better than carrying this around. Your righteousness is as filthy rags. So it's not so much that you judge people that's the problem. Is what is the context of how you judge people? Where does it come out of, right? Dealing with nakedness. We have this issue going on, and we won't admit that we have this issue going on, right? So let's go back now and break in code breaker. Today we're talking about learning the code as we get ready to get Facebook to join us and make sure that we therefore have honored all our platforms that we needed to today. So as we keep on going with this, praise Yah, we're going to back to verse 48. So it says, we'll hunger and thirst, we'll be naked, we'll be in want of all. And then it says, our enemy will put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. A yoke of iron upon thy neck. You ever seen, there's still some prisons today all over the world, including even the United States of America, where they put iron around your neck. You ever seen that? They definitely did it with our ancestors as far as slavery was concerned. Chattel slavery, right? Chattel slavery still exists, by the way. You just have to be arrested in order for chattel slavery to be lawful, according to their standard of law, right? But literally, we had yokes of iron around our neck. Right, yokes of iron. Now, here's something else that a lot of people don't recognize that iron represents. But if you look at iron and clay, for example, mixed in Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 2. Iron represents Rome. Did you know that? You had the gold, that's Babylon. The silver, that's the Medes and the Persians. The Bronze Age, that's the Greeks, and then you had the Romans, that's the iron. And then after that, they broke apart and they got into mixing and matching stuff called a Christianos or Christianity. And you got used to seeing iron mixed with clay. And that's what a lot of people still live by today is iron mixed with clay, even though it's broken off from the 10 toes or the 10 tribes, right? That people aren't even aware of, and the 3 of the tribes were taken out of. But iron represents Rome. So romantic values are even wrapped around your neck. See, we got to break the code. We got to learn the code. We haven't even learned this stuff. You see how vital it is. Why people say this stuff doesn't matter and the word doesn't really matter, and you don't have to worry about tribes and where people come. Oh, no. The Bible keeps telling you over and over again, be careful about these people, be careful about these people, be careful about this situation, be careful about that one. It keeps telling us over and over and over again, like watch it. Don't do that. You saw Moses messed up. He couldn't go over there. Hey, you saw what the Hittites did. Hey, you saw what the Jebusites are doing. You saw what this person doing. You see what that person did. It keeps saying over and over again, please be careful. It tells you people, be careful about those Nicolaitans. Please be careful. We don't even know who they are. Hey, people of Corinth. That's why it's called Corinthians. Get yourselves together. This is y'all issue over here. If you don't get it together, you're going to have problems in this. We don't need to pay attention to that. Why? Why don't you? Why don't you need to pay attention to that? Why wouldn't you pay attention to that? Why wouldn't you learn about that? What's really going on? Hey, look at what happened with with those what happened with Kemet though. Go back to Kemet. Are you Cushite? Are you Kemetic? Are you this? Are you that? It tells you over and over again, like, be careful about these. But yet, somehow, some way, we got into this thing. It doesn't matter, even though your word said it does, over and over again. Walking around with a yoke upon your neck. Before we get into chattel slavery of the 1600s on, really the 1400s on, and technically even back to the 1300s on, we can keep on going if we want to the different stuff. But because we don't talk about the Portuguese, we don't talk about the Spanish enough. We only talk about the English, and then we really only get into America, and that's kind of all that we stop at. And people kind of just use their views. We don't talk about what was going on with the Zulus and how they had to fight, and things like that, and how Shaka's, what is the second or third king down from Shaka, was able to fight and things like that. Like, we don't talk about the fact that we were going through this all over the place. We only seem to want to look at it through our prism and act like that's all there is to it, right? But the reality is that when you're dealing with these items, and thanks for everybody who's joining us on Facebook, and thank you for being on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. We appreciate you. Those coming over from the podcast, we appreciate you as well. Right, but in all these things we're talking about, all these things we're discussing, let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it 100. And all these things that we're discussing and talking about and making sure that we're aware of, we haven't realized that it basically is a romantic spirit, a Greco-Roman spirit. How you doing, Minister Tammy? Hey, how you doing, Tinman? May Yahweh be upon you. Barak Allah Acham Yahweh, by the way. May the blessings be upon thee in the name of Yahweh to everybody who's on. We appreciate you. So the yoke is still upon us. It's still around our neck. How you doing, Shirley? You take your spouse out somewhere. So for those of you who believe in dating, you take your significant other out on a date, and what do? You're trying to be romantic. Everything you do is based off of Roman protocol. But you don't just do that for that. You do it for schoolwork, right? Very romantic, Roman antics, things that are taking over, things that are controlling your life, manipulating your life, things that you're not even aware of. Roman antics all over the place. And a lot of stuff that we even keep now, where it's been developed so much that we don't even see that people are messing these things up over and over again. You said true enlightenment is something most of us are afraid of, so keep teaching truth no matter what. Amen. Thank you. Right? We don't even think about this stuff like now. Like, school, for example, send your child to school. When did school even exist? When did school even exist, especially the way that you talk about school existing? When did school even come into existence? When did school even come into a place to where we started making sure that our children had to be about school? When did we get to this place where we thought school was appropriate? School didn't even exist At least not the way you think it is. Think of it. Thomas Jefferson started doing some stuff with schools, and he started doing it based off of classes to keep people in certain classes and to only have certain people to keep them in their classes. Only certain people will be our managers. Only certain people will have this. That's why if most people weren't even going to go to school, so they didn't care about them. But those who did go to school, but they were just above them, they would really get paid about the same. But to give them some division amongst themselves, he said, we'll give them an elementary. You got to realize that you got an elementary level education. That's what it is. Elementary school used to just mean we're just giving you elementary stuff. Like we, as far as what we consider the elements, the basic of elements to be, so that you will be able to continue to toil for us. We will teach you the basics, right? If you made it up to another level, then hey, you're on the second level. So we call it secondary school. Now you call it high school, where you feel like you're a little higher than the people, as we talked about earlier. And then after we do high school, then we talk about this college as, bachelors. Not even women could go to school really like that, right? So bachelors could go to school. And bachelors, by the way, didn't go to school to learn. They went to wild out. Their parents paid. They stayed there for a year to 4 years. Matter of fact, Copernicus, who made up the whole solar system idea for you guys, for the Roman Catholic Church, he went to he was a bachelor, or as far as working on his bachelor's degree, for 12 years. He just wilded out the whole time. And then at the end, maybe if your parents pay another fee, so you have to pay to let your child just be there, kind of wild out or whatever. And if you want to learn, yeah, some people actually took it serious, but for the most part, most people didn't. And then once you got to a certain level, what do you do? Right? Once you get to a certain level, what do you do? Okay, you pay and we'll give you your degree. Right? Then after that, if you wanted to make sure you were a teacher, the word master means teacher. So if you're going to teach this system stuff, you can get your master's degree, you can get your teacher's degree, a degree of knowledge, right? This is all degrees of knowledge. And if you want to make sure that you even write out what the teachers are going to teach, then you can get what's called your doctorate, to where you as a doctor can doctor or write out certain things that are there. Now you bring it, yeah, exactly. Now you bring it to the Rockefellers, and the Rockefellers change the game up, where now it's official. Now, because they need people to work for them or whatever, they say specifically, you have to go to these schools, or else you can't do this, you can't do that, or whatever. And they wrote up what it is that you go through. That's the code. The yoke of bondage still around our neck, even not just physically, even though there's a lot of people. I've been one of them, walk around with bonds around your I never had it around my neck, praise y'all, but had it around my ankles and had it around my wrist. And was in a chain gang, so to speak. We didn't have to do work, but in a chain gang, you walking from this place to that place. You on the bus, okay, get off the bus. You're in this room, okay. They unlock you once you're all chained up in there, or whatever. You get in there, you got to say your number and not your name, right? Yoke of bondage, but it's spiritual as well. It's spiritual as well. It's psychological as well. That's what psyche in the Greek means. It means the soul. It's your soul, right? It's your soul. It's your soul that's on the line. It's your psychology on the line. How you doing, Minister Moselle? It's your mindset on the line. It's like the prisoners are field slaves, and the free are house slaves, still slaves. Yeah. If you paying taxes, you're still a slave, because you're a debt slave. You don't even know how to get out of it. If you live in paycheck to paycheck, you're still a slave. You still got to go to work. It's just like you got to go to the master's house. So you get to go to the corporate building, right? You get to work from home. So you get to work from your room, your apartment. But you still got to do what the master says. You can't focus on your community the way you want to. How you doing, Brother Elijah? I'm sorry. How you doing, Sister Michelle? You can't focus on those things at all, can you? Because you're still a slave. Mindset, yoke upon your neck. So we got to learn this stuff. So you got to learn equity. Proverbs 1:3, Proverbs 22:6-7, Proverbs 13, verse 22. You got to learn how to speak correctly. Proverbs 18:21. You got to learn how to make sure that you even have understanding. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, or 6 and 7, somewhere in there. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not to thine own understanding. On all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. What are we doing with this? How are we doing this? Where are we doing with this? If you get what I'm trying to say. So back to Proverbs chapter 20, I'm sorry, Deuteronomy 28. They're going to keep the yoke upon your neck until they destroy thee. That's the goal, is to destroy you. Let's not, once again, this is not for everybody. So some people aren't going to like where we're headed with this, that, or whatever. Look, the goal is to destroy thee. Yahshua comes and tells you the same thing later on, even though this is Old Testament stuff. But Yahshua comes later on. He said it like this in John 10:10. The enemy comes, the devil comes, the wicked one comes, the nameless one comes, the one that has no authority but wants you to give it up comes to do what? To kill, steal, and destroy. However, I have come, Yahshua has come, that you might have life and have more abundantly. That's right. So the enemy come to kill, steal, and destroy. The yoke of bondage still upon thy neck. And see, here's the wild part. If you raised thinking it's okay to have bondage, a yoke upon thy neck, you'll think it's okay to raise your babies to have chains around their neck too. They're born with chains on. You think it's okay. I know I'm using a parable here. Obviously, they don't really do what I'm about to say, but you think it's okay for them to basically reach in the womb and already put a bond around your child's neck, so that when that child is born, they can easily just connect it to the chain that you're part of. Yep, Capitol Hill discusses this stuff. Matter of fact, they can't even make laws without making sure that their lobbyists are allowed to come in on meetings. Right? Slavery at all levels. So if you're not careful, Willie Lynch says this. He said the reason why we had to kill off the best N-word, or the N-word that was bucking the most. He said the reason we had to kill them off in the fashion that we did, and we had to beat the men to the point of death, not kill them, but beat them to the point of death in front of their women, but make sure they stayed alive so that they could remain slaves and work for us, because that's how economics work for them. That's what he said, literally. He said we did that in front of the woman so that the woman and the children would see it, that the women and children would never believe that their man, from that point on, they would have a tough time thinking their men could overcome this wicked system. And so from that point on, just like a female horse will eat out of our hand, so will she, and she will teach, because she's afraid that we'll do to her son what she saw, and she's afraid for her daughter that her daughter better eat out of her hand too. She will teach her daughter to be like white men, and she will teach her son to be like white women. We will reverse their role. And he said, if they ever get back to their nature, if they ever even recognize husbands and wives should be in specific places and should be faithful and should be righteous within their culture, he said, if they ever go back to that, if they ever find this Deuteronomy 28 thing is messing them up, he said, that's the only thing that's going to change things for the better for them. Yeah, we normalize slavery through conditioning, that Willie Lynch syndrome. That's what he said. He said, the only way we're really going to ever see any change in this is if they ever recognize that this is what we did. They studied your curses. Once again, the enemy knows more about you than you know about yourself. They studied your code. He keeps saying, when you read the Willie Lynch study, you hear him start saying stuff over and over again, like their nature, or if they were really in their environment, if they were really in their nature, the natural N-word, in their nature, the natural N-word, the natural man, the natural woman, the natural black man, the natural black woman, the natural Israelite man, the natural Israelite woman. He says, if they were in their nature, if you saw them when they really were, he said, this is how they would act. But he said, what we do is we reverse their nature. He literally said, we reverse their nature. And then he goes beyond that and he says, look, not only have we reversed their nature, but we have learned how to keep the body and take their mind. That's why your mama used to always say, that's why your daddy used to say, that's why your granddaddy, your grandmama used to say stuff like, boy, you ain't in your right mind. Yeah, we would banish them from our presence if we once again recognize who we are. But it's hard to banish somebody if you don't have a place that's yours, which is part of what we have to keep working towards. You said it's why they lie. The majority of all churches, the Most High does not dwell in. Yep, that's why he said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. A lot of people don't answer to him. He said, if you'll let me in, I'll come in. Right? The knocking ceremony. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. All right. So where are we at? So the Lord, Adon, shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Yeah, keep the body, take the mind. That's what it says. So a nation will come to you from the end of the earth. It'll come and it'll fly upon thee. It'll descend upon thee with quickness, with veracity and veracity. And it says that you will have a language, they will speak a language you don't what? You don't understand. You don't stand under it. You don't even give it, you've never even given it a thought before. See, now you speak that language that you didn't understand. You're trying to stand under something that was never for your understanding. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. You get it? You're trying to stand under something, grand rising to you, great rising. You're trying to stand under something that never should have been your standard. You're trying to stay underneath something that doesn't fit you. We have a saying on here all the time: if the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. You trying to wear a shoe, you wear a size 10, but you trying to wear that size 8 and trying to figure out why you can't fit in. And then when you get it in there, you're trying to figure out where the shoe is falling apart and why your toes is messed up and why you done broke one of your bones. You wear a size 10, but you're trying to wear a size 13, trying to figure out why you got all these corns on your feet now and why people make fun of you and make fun of your shoes and say that you look like a clown. You look like a clown because it doesn't fit you. You're trying to figure out why is it that they won't give you credit. I mean, heck, I'm wearing your suits. I look better in your suits than you do. I look better in your ties than you do. I look better in your dress than you do. I look better listening to the fashion designer that doesn't even believe in marriage better than you do. I speak the English language with diction that makes people astounded in a manner in which you could never even relate to. All these different things. I make more money than you do. I do this. Guess what, LeBron? You made more money, but they'll still spray N-word on the side of your house. Because in this system, it's not for you. And nobody wants to talk about the fact that, look, some of this stuff is just not for you. In general, some of this stuff is just not for you. I know you want it to all be for you. I know you believe it should all be for you. I know you believe it should all be about whatever you want it to be. I know you think that they should treat you the way that they treat their children. I know you think that they should treat your child the way that they do. They should treat your women the way they treat their women. Your women are the most educated. You would think they make the most money. No, they're not. But you would think that they would. But guess what? They're not going to. You know why? You know why? Because it's not for you. Just like this is not for everybody, this system is not for everybody either. It's a system. It's a system systematically put in place on purpose, put in place to make sure that it's systemic. That means it goes on and on by itself to ensure that certain people will be on top and others will be on the bottom. See, in the kingdom, it tells us, Yahshua tells us specifically, right back to the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verse 19, those who break the least of these commandments are the least in the kingdom, and those that and teach others to do it as well, to teach others that they shouldn't follow the commandments, they are the least in the kingdom of heaven. Those that follow the commandments and teach others to do it, they're considered to be the greatest. Right? That's what it says. That's what Yahshua himself says. But in their system, they have to keep you away from following commandments in order for them to remain on top. In your system, those who follow the commandments are the greatest. How do you follow commandments and you don't even know how they were written? You don't even know your language. You say your whole work in progress. Yeah, a lot of us are. Matter of fact, all of us are, right? You have to realize these things. Like it's written in your Bible. We say this all the time. Read your Bible. It will bless you. Right in your Bible. You're trying to wear something that doesn't fit you. It's not befitting of kings to have bonds around their neck. It's not befitting of queens to be shackled. It's not befitting of children to be on leashes. You ever seen that? That's why in our community, we don't like that. See, in other people's culture, that's cool. Okay, like your child, you don't want to deal with you want to have them do, okay, you have them on a leash. In our community, you don't put no child on a leash. It's not fitting of a prince, of a princess, or somebody's going to become royalty, or somebody who is royalty, even at a young age. It doesn't make sense. It's not befitting of somebody who's supposed to be in truth and freedom to have any kind of shackles or bondage upon them. How you doing, Miss Mac? It's not fitting. It's not your culture. You go, well, that don't make no sense. But especially when you see your own people doing, you go, like it take you a minute, right? Yeah, it takes you a minute. And when you see your people, hopefully your first response usually is not going to be, "Hey, what you doing to that child?" Maybe hopefully you go to them if you're led to. You go to them and you say, "Hey, you know what? Is everything all right? How you doing? Isn't that?" And you talk them through, right? The problem is we just start, yeah, look at you. You're a bad parent. How can you do? Black folks don't put babies on there like that. No, 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 no. Like that's not how we start. You deal with their humanity. We need to do the same in the world. How you doing, yes, son? So Deuteronomy 28, verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. They shall speak in code breakers. We got to learn code, not just even our own code. We got to learn their code too. Learn your enemy. They shall speak in a tongue that you don't understand. They shall say stuff like people. Well, they'll say we the people, and you will believe that means you. But people does not mean you. People is a nation. If you're not part of their nation and you're considered to be a slave, then you are still not a people. That's why you have to develop your own people, and develop your own militia, and develop your own common law, and develop your own community. And when I say own, that means you should be the ones owning it. Stop saying it's your own gas station. Of course, your gas stations look like trash. Why? Because the people that own your gas stations are not you. So they could care less about what your gas station looks like. Of course, the Walmart that's in your area is always ghetto. You always go to somebody else's area. You know why that is? Because you don't own Walmart. Therefore, why would Walmart, and why would the family that owns Walmart, and why would the people therefore who work for Walmart care about what your community needs and making sure that it looks the way that your community would want, right? That's why when you go to the Chinese joint, it looks crazy in there a lot of times when you go to that little corner store Chinese joint. Why? Because when you go to the Chinese joint, they don't really care about what you are. You're there to get whatever they feel like giving you. They see you as slaves. They see you through that prism, and so they're going to give you whatever because it's not your culture anyways. They're giving you what they think, and they're giving you just enough. By the way, if you ever go to the Chinese joints, ask them to eat what they eat, because they don't even eat what's on your menu. You know why? Because they don't care if what you're eating kills you. I'm not talking about bad just about Chinese. I'm telling you, everywhere you go, this is the case. Right. But if you go to an actual Chinese restaurant, not that corner store thing they put in your neighborhood, guess what? The actual Chinese restaurant, they ain't gonna let it just be dirty like that. They're not just gonna let it smell certain ways, and they're just not gonna let it they're not just gonna talk to you just any kind of way. Why? Because their culture is on the line now. See, before they were dealing with you as far as through that plexiglass, through that place to where they don't trust you, through that place to where they gotta shield their culture off from you. But if you're gonna be in a place where their culture has to be all around you, oh, they gotta act different. You got to know the code. You're living in the code. You said you did that before. They said no. I've done it before. I've had to like stay in somebody's face about it. And sometimes I had to tell them, "This is what you guys make. This is what y'all eat. Right? It's called this. It's called that." I had to like even bring it up on my phone. And then like a couple times they had so much respect. They were like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know you went to. Yeah, that's very healthy. We eat that for this and that. Yeah, sure. Give us a second." It was actually one place was actually on the menu, but they knew nobody ordered it. But I saw what it was. I was like, "Oh, okay, that's like with the sprouts and da da." I think I had that before, and I asked her about it, and she was like, "Oh, nobody even orders that." Yeah, she said they were eating fish heads. Yeah, but I mean, they have stuff that's on there. Yeah, they have all types of stuff. Yeah, we go to yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's what I'm saying. That same mindset. You'll go to a Chinese joint for what? For chicken. And the chicken that you want is not like Chinese do their own version of fried chicken, but you're not asking for their version of fried chicken. You want the fried chicken that you eat, but you want them to make it. Think about that. That's the mindset we have, the yoke that's upon us, that we, even though we know we could make it, and I'm not saying it's the healthiest thing to eat, but we know if anything, you could make some fried chicken and it would probably taste a lot better than what theirs tastes like. And yet, what do? I'd rather just go ahead and have y'all make what comes out of me. Well, my mama and my grandmama and my daddy and my granddaddy used to have that. I'd rather just go to you to make it. We don't eat shrimp and all that stuff anymore because we don't eat that stuff. But at the same time, like, look, if you one of these people still out there eating them scrimps and them scallops and all that stuff and getting them scrimps up in you and making sure you had them crawdaddies and getting them blue, the blue crab and getting this and getting the Alaskan crab and getting all that stuff, getting that catfish and all that stuff. Okay, fine. If you still gonna do all that, if that's what you're gonna do, like, at least know that your people do that stuff too. Sometimes do it better. You don't have to go to somebody else. See, we're the only people who have been taught that it's okay to walk around with a yoke. Yeah, convenience, right? We don't even own our convenience store. So you go to a convenience store, you're like, why is it always not inconvenient concerning the price? Because it's not for you. When you say eating it from them is an insult. They hire us to train them, then fire us and take over the business. Yeah, that's what happened in DC, to the point, like, DC, Chicago. I guess y'all call it the same thing too. But I think I'm not trying to be biased because that's where I mostly grew up, and have mostly lived in my life. Well, I can't say that anymore, but used to be able to say I've mostly lived in DC my entire life. At one point, but yeah, or the DMV, not DC, the DMV, but like, they actually like mambo sauce. If you go to DC, you'll see articles, and they'll have these articles talking about, oh yes, in DC mambo sauce, and they'll give you a Chinese store, and they'll be like, in DC they created mambo sauce, and they'll give you a Chinese restaurant. It's like, mambo sauce, like, we made that long time ago. You say we respect DC for the go-go, back and junk and all them. Yeah, and that's old school right there, back and junk. No, I mean, shit, Chuck and all them, right? Right. But I'm just saying, like, they learn from you, and then they took your stuff. They don't even make it as well as you used to make it. Right. Yeah, we can fry our own chicken. We can make our own stuff. We can have our own money. We can have our own businesses. We can watch this. We can support each other's businesses. We've been trying to do that for a while on here. If you need shea butter, we got somebody that does shea butter. If you need medicine, we got somebody that does medicine. If you'd like to be able to get somebody, to help you out with some health stuff, as far as spirituality or Reiki stuff or whatever, my wife does that also as far as the medicine. But we have other people that do stuff like that too. We have people who do music lessons. We have people who build homes from scratch. We have people who do HVAC in homes. We have people who lay down floors. We have, I mean, what we have is outstanding. We have people who make seasoning. And some of these people I'm talking about got to work 1, 2, 3 jobs. And if we just went ahead and bought some of their product, they wouldn't have to work. We got people who bake stuff. Found out, I didn't know that there were 2 people on here. I was only aware of one. I can't remember the other person's name right now, but we have 2 people on here that literally do sweets and bake things for you and make things from scratch and make these things like the stuff that you see on there. Like, how did they make a cake that looks like a beer can, but they cut it in half and it was chocolate in the middle? Like, we have people that do stuff like that. We have people who do desserts. Right? But we got the chain around our neck. I'd rather go. Even if I'm gonna order it on Amazon, I'd rather order it on Amazon through somebody else. Like, you could order it through somebody right here. People who do shirts. You about to see a lot of shirts coming up from us too, but we got people on the side doing shirts that we've been saying for a long time. Get in touch with them. They do shirts. Let's get some orders and stuff going. Yeah, we got calendars, we got tassels, we're gonna have clothing soon at some point. Working on possibly getting the 3D printer. That's gonna change the game up. Working on making sure that we get different things so we can get you these Hebrew characters in different ways, stuff like that. We have stuff within our own community all the time. We do have people who homeschool. My wife is finishing up curriculum so that people of different ages or whatever, whether she's on every time or somebody else wants to take over when she can't be on, because she can't do everything. But we have it where there's going to be stuff you could literally just read the stuff to everybody who comes in the room or comes on the virtual room, comes in Zoom, but you could literally just read what's there for you and everybody can learn. Like, we have this stuff within ourselves, but we have this yoke that says, let's go to somebody else. It's not as valuable if it's not from somebody else. It's not something that blesses us if it's not from somebody else. Right? That's what we have in our mindset. Do a Hebrew characters book. That's an interesting proposition. I had to think about how to even do. Yeah, that's an interesting proposition. I think we could do it. It's actually not that difficult now that you say it. It's going to be, yeah, you know what? And take that, put it in my back pocket real quick. Come back to it. Right. But I'm just saying, so we have ourselves, right? But we have this yoke upon us. So verse 49, the Lord shall bring a nation against from afar, who's from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle fly, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Watch this, a nation of fierce countenance. You gotta learn the code. A nation of fierce countenance. Fierce countenance. Right? That means a fierce appearance. A fierce appearance. They're scary to even look at. Now I know people don't like it when we say that, but just being honest. What do these people take pride in? Viking. Stuff like that, right? We're coming. Right? NFL. I didn't even watch it. I don't know if I want to watch it or find it. They postponed the game last night, right? The Cincinnati Bengals were supposed to play the Buffalo Bills, and somebody got injured in football. And whatever happened, I guess it was so bad that they stopped it. And the person's in critical condition. I don't know what happened. I didn't see it. I don't know about it. Right. I know a little bit about it, but I'm not like completely intimate with it. I just kind of and I'm aware of it. But somebody got messed up really bad. And by the way, that's something you should expect in football. There's been players in football, basketball, whatever. It's gladiatorial sports, boxing, etc. But people who get hit are never the same. People can't walk anymore. People whose spines are severed, like all types of wild stuff happens. So they tell you it never happens. It rarely happens, if ever, but stuff happens all the time. Right. But this is fierce. It's a fierce countenance, a fierce appearance. You said he stood up and went into cardiac arrest. Okay, I didn't know what happened. Right. So if you get a chance, pray for him. Pray for his family. Pray for I think his mother, right, who was there when it happened. I had to see that happen to her child, and hopefully she's doing all right and getting enough sleep. But these are things that are there. Oh, okay. How you doing, Minister Sonia? So these are things that we have to realize. That this type of stuff happens a lot, and it's gladiatorial sports. Do you know how many, like, Tua got a concussion, and everybody was like, "Oh wow, we've seen it." Like, hasn't there been an argument about concussions for 10, 15 years now? Wasn't there a lawsuit that the NFL barely paid anything out of? Right? Has there not been people getting hit? I remember being a little child, and I'm not trying to talk ill of my dad. I'm just saying as far as how ignorant we were. I remember being a little child, and you know, my father, when somebody would get hit in football, when they had that, like that, like immediately, like, bang bang, like somebody catch hit type hit, and when somebody would get knocked out and would just be laid out, my father would stand up and say, "Awesome." Like, I remember that. I used to like, I used to, like a lot of children can, your parents enough where you can imitate them. There's one of the way things I can imitate. If somebody got hit, you say, "Awesome." Like that's what you thought. It was an awesome hit. Matter of fact, they're not letting them play football enough anymore. I actually agree with you. They're not letting them play American football the way that they used to. Like, if you want them to play American football, just be ready to, especially as people get bigger, stronger, faster, be ready, because the hits are going to be a lot more. Like, LT, greatest player in the world. So I'm not trying to say anybody's on his level, but I'm talking about as far as air and physicality and speed and how strong people are. Like, there's several people with LT strength and LT speed. They might not be able to dominate their area the way LT did. That's why he's considered by many not just be the greatest defensive player or lineman, and some people even tell you linebacker, show how gifted he is, right? But some people say he's the greatest football player of all time. But there's a bunch of them now. That's why a lot of these basketball players, they have all these injuries now. You see so many different players now, more hamstring injuries, things like that, all types of stuff. You see more people with the forgive me, why am I forgetting what's that called? Not just the hammy, but then you got the I can't remember the name of the other one I'm looking for in the leg, but you got all these injuries that are crucial now. Why? Because they're doing things to their bodies. Scientists have actually said to people, like there's going to get a point to where people are going to be doing stuff and pushing themselves so hard for sports and stuff that literally they're going to run so fast and do stuff that their muscles are going to start to detach from their bodies, and that's what actually happens. Like muscles are not designed. Your heart, like you guys know this, right? Like I know running. So somebody corrected me the other day. So walking, your body's designed to walk, your body's designed to run, but your body's not designed to jog. It can't really do halfway in between, right? It's detrimental to your body. But if you run for hours and hours and hours, or if you run a 3 mile, if you run for a lot of people, if you run a mile, not everybody really running for a mile. I used to be able to run for a mile when I was younger, right? When I was in the military, I could do a mile and a half in 5 minutes and something. So if I really had trained, I probably could have done like, world record type stuff or whatever. Like I used to be able just naturally. I'm 6'5.5". I got long legs. So when I started running, like I could just off of pace, if I could keep my pace up, I would feel like I was gonna die at the end of it. But if I just could make up my mind, I will not stop until I finish this, this this PT test, right? I could do that, right? But I'm saying like your body's not really designed to do. Most people are not running. Like if I do a mile and a half now, I am not sprinting for a mile and a half. I'm just not. Right. I don't train like that. Right. Used to run 8 miles a day, not world record, but slow and steady. Yeah, you run slow, steady, and I'm not saying it's not great that you can do. I'm just saying if you do that, your body will break down. Like your body is trying to die. That's why you have to have a second wind. Like your body is saying, I'm about to die. And then your mind kicks in and says, I won't allow you to. Right. Your bones start doing weird things. Your hips start doing different things. Right. You start doing different things because your body's not designed for it. Right. But as gladiatorial sports, we like to see that stuff. We like to see people do things that your body's not designed to do. Sure. Like even to this day, if I needed to like hip check or hit somebody, right, or punch somebody or something like that, could I do it? Sure. But my body's not technically designed as much as there are people. And look, I used to be somebody punching trees to get your knuckles strong. I know what that is. I know what that life is, right? But at the same time, your body's not really designed to do that. At some point, your body's gonna say, we can't do this anymore. But we do it not necessarily because it's great for us. And how you doing, DA? Greetings and salutation. We do it not because it's something we're supposed to do. We do a lot of stuff because we look for what? The Greco-Roman crowd, the roar of the crowd. We can't wait. Yeah, and people get addicted to it. They get addicted to it. You said you're a Navy vet. You did push-ups on your knuckles. That's great. Navy doesn't require that, nor does any other service. But like, hey, yeah, when you were back then, I don't know if you did them like this or if you did them like this. If I do knuckles, I usually do them on the side, right? But yeah, those are those things that are there. We're not aware of those things, right? We're not aware of how these things, move or whatever. You have a shackle around you. You're doing it for the roar of the crowd. Once again, back to Deuteronomy 28. Let me focus a little more. The Lord shall bring a nation against the, I'm sorry, verse 50. They shall have, should be a nation of fierce countenance, fierce appearance of everything. Everything is designed to be fierce, to be about fighting. Fight through your struggles, fight for your goals, fight for your family, fight. And I'm not saying you shouldn't fight for your, but hear what I'm saying. Everything is violent. Everything is violent. Man, you better be quiet, man. I'll whip you in that. I'll whip you in that race. Man, I'll beat you so bad in that. Right? I'll beat you in playing 2K. I'll beat you like you stole something, little N-word. We taking on a countenance that's not ours. Remember, the language is not ours. Language attaches to culture. So the culture is not ours. She killed it. Yeah. Very violent. She killed it. Even in church. I remember I had to start asking myself, we started asking each other, should we really be saying these words? Because you be a musician and stuff, and then you hear some of these musicians that's on like levels of, whatever. Like that's they literally been playing since they were 2 years old at a level that's better than what I play at, right? So like you hear and you see him and you be like, oh man, he murdered that jump. Like, bro, that he killed that joke. And somebody be like, they even say like in DC, I don't know if they say it in a lot of places in DC, when the children or when the younger people say like something that's great, they say kill, or they agree with it rather. When they agree with it, they say kill, mo, kill, meaning I agree with it. I had to actually, somebody I was preaching, and somebody came out to support a preacher we were putting up, a guy we were putting up when we were licensing or whatever. So he's doing his initial sermon. And when I got up to do the charge and stuff afterwards, he heard me preaching. He was like, kill, Mo. And everybody else, I remember everybody else didn't recognize what was going on. Oh, wait. And everybody was, oh, the devil's in here. Blah, blah. And I was like, no, chill out, y'all. It was like, he's saying he agrees. Now, should he be saying kill, Mo? Of course not. But at the same time, once again, we can't put people in heaven or hell. It's not for you to do. Right? It's not for you to do. Okay. So here we go. So what he shall have a fierce countenance, and which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. When we're trying to learn the culture, what's going on? When we're trying to learn the culture, we have to realize that a lot of people don't learn the culture, because how can you learn the culture, what came before you, if you have no regard for the person of old, nor show favor to the people that are younger to you? Calling women bro, or women calling each other the B word. I'm the baddest B, stuff like that, right? But they have no regard. This happened to me last night. My family and I, we were out. We went to a pool, and I was, in the men's room changing and all that, and trying to get out of there. And there's this older guy talking to here, he was talking to me about my son. He had heard him, and he had seen him before I got in the pool. His mom and him were already in the pool before I got in the pool. And so he was saying how he was intelligent and how you guys teach him. And he says, father, this and that, showing respect. We were just going back and forth with respect, and I'm showing appreciation. And I was like, yeah, respect that, thank you, right? White gentleman, by the way, whites by social construct, right? White. So I was like, okay, like cool, whatever, no issue. He's older than me, by the way, so I'm even showing respect to him in that manner. Appreciate it, thank you, sir, all this stuff. And then these two little boys who are the same culture as he is, right? Social construct, white. These two boys come in and they start talking about sports. So this guy, friendly old person, he decides he's gonna start talking about it. And he says, "Oh, so what do you guys think about this game?" And blah blah. And they're like, "Oh, well, this and that." And they're and the young boys, they're into this whole. All they do is make fun of each other, so they go ad hominem. So all they do is stuff. Well, since he's from Ohio, I think they were talking about the football games, and they were like, "Well, Ohio State. That's because they're from Ohio State." Blah blah. And it was like, and the guy says, "Well, Alabama should have been in it." And the way he said it, I knew, oh, he must have went to school in Alabama, right? So I'm already like watching this play out in my mind. I'm just watching. I'm trying to get changed. I'm actually trying to leave because I know we got the watch party. So I got to actually run and get something to eat before I come back for them when they're ready to go, to try and get, to try and make sure that we can get the watch party done last night, right? And so, which we'll be doing again tonight, finishing up, reclaiming the throne together. But I'm doing my best to be like, okay, no problem. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna, get out of here. And then the guy basically starts talking, and they basically disrespect Alabama, and they disrespect him, and they're like, I don't care what school you went to, and blah blah, and this and that. And then he starts getting a little disrespectful back. And so you know what I do? I didn't even mean to do it. I just stand up as I'm still trying to get out of there. I'm just trying to get out. I stand up, and as I'm getting my stuff on, I just go, you know what? Respect. Like, like that's what came out of my mind. I didn't mean to say. I just can't. It's just who I am now. Like I was trying to put the stuff on. I just go respect. And then the old guy kind of realized, he actually kind of apologetic, like, "Oh, my bad," and this and that and all this stuff. But I was like, respect. And then and then they looked at me. Well, I don't care about it. I was like, look, bro. I was like, look, I played some of these sports. I never made it to a professional level, but I was like, even though I hurt myself, like I played on high level. I know what this stuff is. So you can talk to me however you want. But I promise you, like you will not disrespect me. And if you're gonna disrespect me, you don't want me to disrespect you back, because you could never disrespect on the level I would. I was like, you should be thankful that I'm not who I used to be. And then, but I told them, I was like, all of then of course they get all upset and frustrated because they knew I was right, and also like they were trying to get all swole up on me and stuff. But they look, I'm 6'5.5", you little child to me, like literally in age, but also even in your stature. You ain't, But to the older man, he was trying to disrespect. He thought he was going to do the same thing. I was like, no. Like you thought you was gonna pick an old man and probably thought I was gonna say anything because you saw me putting on a dashiki print, and therefore you thought, oh, okay, I'm not gonna worry about you messing with an old white man. Like, no, respect, bro. Yeah, I know. I didn't even think about it. Yeah, because I was rushing to get the stuff, and then we got to the watch party. By the time we came back later, I didn't think, but it happened real quick. And then as I'm walking out, because I'm still trying to rush to get, like I said, to get the food and then try and come back to make sure I pick everybody else up. And then I had to wait in line forever, when I went to get my food. But when I on my way out, they're out there, and then they got other boys, and I guess the father was there or whatever. And so they're chirping to him or whatever, and the father and the other boys look at me or whatever. I'm like, look, y'all can come out if you want. I don't have time to really get jumped right now. But as I'm walking away, and then you hear him, and the father's like mumbling stuff and stuff like that. I said, hey, say it over here. I'm fine. But I was like, you the father. If they disrespect another man, you should teach them better than that. Respect. I ain't mean like this happened within like 5 minutes. Like I'm trying to just get out of there. Right? But people don't comprehend respect, right? And they think that you're supposed to have a yoke around your neck. You're not supposed to talk. And there's a fierce countenance in these people that says they don't respect their elders, nor do they give their young people a place to where they should be recognized as who they are. See, if I had let them just disrespect, I guess this is why it just came out of me. If I had let them disrespect like that, then that means that I'm telling them that it's okay the next time they do it. And so even if they do it next time, they'll probably think twice. Right? Even if they do it next time, they'll probably think twice. Anyways, though. So it says they're not going to respect the old. They're not going to worry about that. They're not going to respect it, and they're not going to show favor to the young. Verse 51, and ye shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed. He shall eat what? The fruit of thy cattle. And what? And the fruit of thy land. In other words, he going to eat you. He's going to eat everything that you come up with. He's going to eat everything you come up with. He's going to eat everything you come up with. If it's from your cattle, if it's from your food that you grow. Cattle, by the way, is talking about, even as food is as well at that time. But cattle is more so something that's thought of as money. Like people might not have money in certain tribes. So people go, Africa's poor. No, they got a bunch of cattle in those tribes. They got money. They don't think about money. They don't need you've tried to say they're poor because they don't have what you have. That's what the system does. But they already have their own thing. They see when they get married, they worry about trading cattle. Why? Because the cattle to them is money. And see, we were nomadic. We were shepherds, right? Remember, we were shepherds. So to shepherds, right? To shepherds, we wore gold and everything, but to a shepherd, like money ain't as important to a shepherd. What helps me to protect my sheep? That's right. Money ain't that important to a shepherd. What helps me to protect my cattle? Right. Our standard is coming from somebody else's. Copying, copying our languages and our poetry and our dances, our hairstyles, all those things, right? Telling you that somehow this doesn't look like this. Did y'all catch that? I don't know if everybody's seen the same angle, right? So I might have to move my head some, but for TikTok, saying us that this doesn't look like this somehow. It looks like somebody else. And by the way, when it comes to lions, you guys know that the darker the mane, the more attractive they are. The more melanated they are, the more lioness is attracted to them, right? If you're on YouTube, they try to tell us that this doesn't look like this. It looks like somebody else. If you're on Facebook, they try to tell us that this doesn't look like this. See, like somebody lying. Once again, when the truth is replaced by silence, then silence is a lie. We talked about that last night. Right? Like you got to recognize who you are. You got to recognize who you are. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle. He'll take your money from you. He'll tell you that your cattle don't mean nothing, but then he'll use your cattle and then start making all types of stuff off of them. He'll take your ox from you. He'll tell you your ox don't mean nothing, but then he'll start going ahead and using your ox to till his land. Wait a minute. He'll do the same thing with your food. Here, have some pig guts, have some chitlins, some chitterlings, right? We don't even eat that. That's what you eat now. Even in human families, most women of all nations want a black man. I mean, I'll leave that alone, sis. You said it, not me. How about that? I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying for reasons that I can't really get into as far as social media coming to me, I'll just let that sit there. But I won't say I disagree, but I can't talk on it too much. If you get what I'm saying. All right. Right. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed. The goal is to keep doing this until you can't take it no more. What you say, man? You said take your culture and then tell you, oh, you don't have a culture and they stole theirs. Yep, that's the difference between his story and your story. They took it, they said it's his. He took it, he said it's his, and then he said you don't have nothing left. Right? Great way of even making it more succinct. So he'll do it until you're destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. Complete desolation. Oh, no. I'm just saying you can say it. I'm saying I can't say it. Right? But I'm saying, like, you can say it though. Like when we have some other conferences or we do some Zoom stuff or we do some different stuff where I know we got stuff a little more in line or whatever, or maybe it's less people or whatever, we can talk about it a little bit. But I'm just saying to be safe. You do whatever you need to do. I appreciate it. Right? Don't censor yourself on account of what I can't do. Praise God. All right, verse 52. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down. Wait a minute. So we had protection. We protected ourselves. They said we didn't protect ourselves. They said that all that happened was that people came over and were enslaved. Do you know that when slaves, people who would become slave owners and slave masters and people who were basically slave patrolmen, right, coming after the, their people who entered in first, their missionaries, you know that those people who came in first, they and then they were looking for specific tribes. They lie to y'all and say that the reason why people enslaved us is because that we were enslaving each other and we're selling each other, and white people just so happened to show up, and we were like, the way they try to make it sound is like white people by social construct or colonial construct, they just showed up and we just randomly were like, hey, you want some slaves? And they were like, yeah, go ahead, take these slaves. And we were, and the Englishmen and the Portuguese and the Dutch and the French and the Spanish and the people of Belgium and all these people, they just were like, oh, that's so nice. You want to give us slaves? Well, of course we would take slaves. But what happened is they were looking for specific tribes. They already knew what tribes they wanted. They came over and they would ask about tribes. And when they would find a tribe that was against the tribe they were looking for, they would go to them. And a lot of people don't tell you that one of the reasons why the tribes, even though it was too late, but the tribes who helped to make slaves of other tribes, one of the reasons they finally started fighting was not just because, hey, we need to come together because there's so few of us left. They started fighting against them because they actually realized, because they didn't have the same thought process of what you use as term slavery today. They didn't do that. So they didn't think it would, like, basically slaves were people who might have lost a battle, but also like, hey, you're a prisoner of war, or you killed somebody, or we don't have prisons like that, so you might have to work off your debt. That's what, imprisonment technically is to this day, right? That's why you pay your debt to society. So what happened is that they realized that, like, wait a minute, they started thinking that social construct white people, they started thinking that they were cannibals, because they were like, they kept giving them people for the tribe, but then the people would disappear. And some of that did happen, but not all the way around. Right. But then they went and they looked for them, when they got to places and started realizing there were places like the Point of No Return and stuff like that on the slave coast, and what they had done to the kingdom of Judah and what they had done to Israelites all over the place, and what they had done to some of their own tribes that weren't Israelites. And they started realizing Oh, like they're taking them to another land? Like that's unforgivable because this is their land. Why would you take them away from their homeland? Why would you take them away from who they are? That's why many people jumped off the ships. Not just because they didn't want to be slaves, sure, but a lot of them, they didn't want to ever deal with the prospect of not being in their homeland because they felt a spiritual attachment to the land. If you don't believe so, when y'all go and look up stuff like Armistead, a lot of people like that movie and everything. I've never really even watched it that much in all honesty, but a lot of people like that movie. When you go watch Armistead, right? Or not, when you read about it rather, and you discover what happened on there, you'll discover that there were people, especially I think one guy in particular, who basically they kept waiting for people to help them to get back to Africa because once all that finished, they had a long time to where like people had to raise money to get them back. So a lot of people became impatient. And one guy, and specifically, he walks into the water. He just walks in, doesn't struggle or anything, walks into the water, and then basically just stays underwater until he dies because he thought that he would never be able to get back to his homeland. That's how important it was. So when people realized they were taking them away from their homeland like that, that's when they started fighting. But they don't tell you any of that because once again, when the truth is replaced by silence, silence becomes a lie, and that lie been sitting there. When somebody says, "Well, y'all just sold each other into slavery," you came looking for specific tribes and then tricked other people who had beef with them or whatever, and then told them that they were going to try to kill them. So of course they would try and help you to take care of them because they didn't look at black or white as a real thing until all of a sudden they realized, oh, like you guys think black and white is a real thing, and then it was too late. But they don't tell you that part, do they? Because they speak a language, they speak a code that you and I don't speak. They're still speaking in the same code that caused division back then, keeping the diaspora one against the other. And a kingdom divided against itself, it cannot stand. And the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence. And it tells you here specifically that these people, their countenance is violent, it's fierce. And they have it to where they don't respect elders, nor do they think there's any value in our youth. All right, Tamika, how you doing? Hey, how you doing, Rebel Andreas? Chipura Foy. All right, how you doing? Thanks for being part of the community. Grandpa 11112917. Grand rising to you all. Shabbat shalom to everybody. Peace be upon everybody on this. Oh, sorry, Shabbat. Sorry, shalom to everybody. Peace be upon everybody on this day. Shabbat shalom is still not until Saturday on the calendar. It'll move in a little bit, but not yet. Alrighty. So watch this. So here we are in verse what? In verse 52. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates. What shall he do? He'll besiege thee in all thy gates. Everywhere you try to go, he's going to keep you from getting out until thy high and fence walls come down. All the stuff you had to protect yourself. Wherein thou trust, right? What? Wherein thou trust. You have your trust and your protection, but you didn't count on somebody who was studying you. You didn't count on making sure that you knew who they were. And the violent take it by force. Right? And they'll do this what? Throughout all thy land, everywhere that is your land. Right? Weren't you the original Americans? You know, the original definition of American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. What's going on in Africa? Aren't they building stuff and building structure? And you go to Ghana, and the longest street that's there, it's called George Herbert Walker Bush Street or whatever, street lane, whatever it is. Right, all over the place. Chinese people building up things and whatever, and if the government doesn't bow down to them, they shut their power off because it's their grid, it's not yours. Right? You had these things, you trusted in them, but you didn't trust in it to make sure you knew your enemy throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which Yahweh Elohim has given who? Thee. He had given it to you. Why do you keep giving it to everybody else? He gave you the recipe. Why is it everybody else's recipe? Why is it that you think Paula Dean does chicken better than you? Why is she calling you the N-word? And then people defending Paula Dean and making jokes, talking about, man, see, Paula, I like that chicken. Now I can't mess with you no more because you said the N. Why did you think that it was hers in the first place? Why did you think because she had a mammy that taught her something? Skip Bayless, y'all who like Skip Bayless, and be like, oh, Skip Bayless, he keeps it real when it comes to black issues. Skip Bayless grew up with a mammy, y'all. He grew up with two drunk white parents that didn't take care of him. That's why he doesn't have children himself. He said that he puts his job before his own wife. He told his wife, Ernestine, if y'all know about her, he told her straight up when they got together, hey, I'm not going to have children. I'm not going to do these things. I don't want this stuff. My job comes before you, and that's just the way it is. And if you can't do that, he said, I tried to date all these different people, and I tried to tell these women, but none of them got it. But Ernestine got it, and that's why I love her. Like, he loves her because he puts his job first. Fierce countenance. That's what y'all are under. You're listening to that man and thinking that he has anything of righteous value to say. Let me, Holy Spirit, which pricked me. He might have some things of righteous value to say, but he obviously ain't living righteous. Hopefully you got that. I'm sorry. Right? They want him fired right now because of something he said about the young man that needed CPR. Oh, see, I didn't even realize he said something about that. He definitely just finished saying what he said about Shannon. He an old Oklahoma boy trying to tell you he ain't got no racism in him. Grew up with a mammy and telling you that he don't know nothing about racism. So, like I said, I haven't even seen the stuff yet. I don't even know what's on and popping yet. I literally saw a piece of it in getting up today, and my wife and I started talking, so I didn't even see much of it. Right. But once again, here we are. That he's gonna do all these things. It was given to you. Now, verse 53, and thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body. So now you're living like they do. So it was fruit for them. It was fruit for you at first. It was given to be fruit and you could use it. Now all of a sudden they start eating it and destroying you. Now what's going to happen? You're going to start eating and destroying you. You're going to start eating and destroying you. You're going to eat each other. You're going to come at each other. Light skin versus dark skin. Mother against daughter. Father against son. Black folk against white folk. Red bone against mahogany. Mahogany against ebony. All this foolishness. Beyonce against Michael Jackson. I mean, we continue in the same thing. In the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. Right. So you eat the fruit of thy own bodies, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which Yahweh Elohim hath given thee in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee. So if you've gotten it so far, your enemy has gotten to a place where they got you on all sides. There's only a few places to get out. There's even the way that Israel would be designed and the way we design our camps, the way we design our cities, that you wouldn't be able to just get in. There's places and it's straight and narrow paths, not wide range roads, because you have to protect the people and all these different things. The camels literally have to go down and even scoot through this thing called the needle. That's why it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of Elohim. And we allowed all this stuff to happen now, and we got buddy with everybody, and we told everybody where everything was, and we gave them all the information. So now, guess what? Now this person without culture has taken your culture, at least what they could comprehend of it. They don't know how to live by it, but they've taken enough of it to be able to make it their standard. They've taken how you are not supposed to be in debt and put you in debt. And now they're always talking about their credit score and how to make you better. And now you got to come to their seminars to be able to figure out how in the world to make sure my credit score gets back to 800, which really, by the way, who cares what your credit score is? Because you don't really need great credit to buy a home anyways. If you got the money, who cares what your credit is? If you got the capital, who cares what your credit is? That's how people from other countries come over. Sometimes they give them better credit just because they come from other countries, which speaks to some racism too. But a lot of times, guess what? A lot of times they come over and their families got stuff and they got it like it, and they've been saving before they come over. So you put it together, they can come over, they can get a brand new car, brand new, bought, owned. They're not worried about payments on it at all. You say, how did they do that? They came together. Psalm 122, Israel must be compact. She must come together. Song of Degrees. I was glad when they said unto me, let Israel say. It says after that, I was glad when they said to me, let's go into the house of the Lord. Now may Israel say, if it had not been for the same Song of Degrees, Psalm 120 Psalm 134, same Song of Degrees. If it had not been for Adon who was by our side, now may Israel say. Right? Let's keep on going though. All right, so now we invert. So we had this where we're gonna start eating our own. Now, This is where it gets really difficult to hear and difficult to listen to. I'm gonna try and rush through it a little bit because of time, right? But and I had to be obedient because there's something we had to get done by the end of today, right? So we can be in a better place for this. But let's keep on. Let's keep on doing it. You ready? Let's keep on making sure we get this. So here we are, and a lot of you have heard me talk about this already if you've been with us for some time. So it's going to be repetitive. We're in Deuteronomy 28. We're going to go to verse 54 now. 54. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 54. Okay. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 54. And remember, the word tender means unprepared. We've gotten away from the law. We got away from the statutes. We're listening to somebody else. Somebody else has come in and taken us away from ourselves. So now here we are, what? Tender. We are unprepared. We are not in position. All right. So here we go. That's what tender means. So when you see tender, unprepared, we're not prepared. We're not ready for this. We don't know the culture. We don't know the code. We can't decode anything. Okay. I just want to make that clear. All right, here we go. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 54. So after all this stuff happened, it said it's going to happen, that this happens next. The man tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother and toward the wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. It says the system is set up in such a manner that one of the curses that we should be looking for in trying to learn the code and break the code and learn what they're doing in these coded messages. It says that the man, because of all the stuff we talked about and the shackles that are still around our necks, it says he will become unprepared. He'll be tendered. He has nothing to prepare himself for what's coming. And since he has nothing to prepare himself for what's coming, it says that he will look with an evil eye towards his brother. Why he got all that? I mean, we both grew up with the same thing. Why he think he better than me? You know, I bumped that, man. He think that he better. Look at the way he did. Look at the way he got him and his wife getting along. He tried to throw that in my face all day. He know that my wife and I don't get along. Not can I learn, not can I build up, not how did you do it, not that brother should be teaching him and should be making sure that that brother can't even get to a place of being tender. No, we are divided. We are scattered. Living next door to our own people and so scattered mentally that we don't even say hello to our neighbor. Don't even know your neighbor's name. Never had a conversation. Don't think that we're supposed to. See our own men. Look, I know I'm big and everything, but I'm 6'5.5". Used to be a little skinnier, right? And I would walk in a 3-piece suit down in Washington, D.C. at some of the nicest places, looking better than other people with the haircut and everything, right? With the haircut, didn't have the full beard, all that, had to shape up, all that stuff. And guess what? It was our sisters sometimes more than the other sisters, our elders more than the other elders that would see me even in a suit and would clutch their pearls and try to go to the other side of the street. It used to hurt my heart. It used to be tough just walking down the street, thinking that they would be looking at me like, hey, he's doing some great stuff. Look at him over there. He's representing us well. That's what I thought. But see, even when I did that culture, they still were trained to be like, oh, he's a problem. Oh, the thing with the twin that hit. Yeah, we brainwashed, indoctrinated to be against each other. So it says we as men who are not prepared anymore now. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, but your neck can't handle the weight. So you out here looking like a bobblehead, right? Out here trying to take care of stuff. No backbone. Backbone ain't strong. And by the way, that's what's supposed to be, because if you got a strong backbone, then you're told that you're toxic because you're masculine, as if all masculinity is toxic, or as if any masculinity is toxic, because masculinity is not hitting somebody. Masculinity is not cussing somebody out. Masculinity is not saying I'm better than you because I'm a male. Thank you for the love. That's not what masculinity is. But we become what? Unprepared, tender. And we start looking at each other some way. And then we get mad because then guess what? Like our wife supposed to be one with us, but now we don't know how to be husband and wife. So we turn around, we're unprepared for marriage. So the unprepared man turns to his wife and he get mad at her too. And he go at her. And then the unprepared man, the only thing left now is his children. And he looks at them, and because he's so unprepared and so mad, and nobody respects him, because number one need for a man, right? I know there's exceptions to every rule, but real talk. Talk to your husband, talk to your brother, talk to your father. Number one need for a man is respect. If he says, "I don't feel like you hear me, like, I don't feel like you listening," you don't speak the code, you don't comprehend the language. He's saying nobody respects me, right? Put some respect on my name. Is, hey, when I say something, can you at least listen to it? I don't care if you I don't care if you got a different opinion about what I said, but can you hear what I said? Yeah, exactly. There's no such thing as feminine or feminine toxic or masculine toxic. It's just toxic. If it's toxic, it means it's something that's, basically wasting away what it is. So if you're saying something's toxic masculinity, then it actually means that it's eating away at masculinity, which means that you're getting away from masculinity. It's not masculine. If you're saying it's toxic femininity, you're saying it's eating away at femininity. It's not feminine. It's actually eating away at feminine, or what is feminine. Excuse me. Right. So the man unprepared, and he looking all around. What does it say after that? So once we have the unprepared man, verse 54, verse 55, it says, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat. Now he's tearing up his children. He's tearing up his life. He's tearing up the stuff so much. He's tearing them up. He's not sharing anything with them. He's not doing anything. He's tearing them up because he had nothing left him in the siege. Now you got to remember, this is in a siege. This is when you're under attack. When you're under attack, what happens with people is they siege you. Like when they do a siege, they'll make sure you cannot have food coming in or out. They stay at the places that are straight, right? Knowing that you're supposed to go through the straight and narrow path. So those who go through the straight and narrow path, unless they know the hidden path. This is a whole other thing we could talk about at some other point. But they dealing with this straight and narrow path. And so those who are trying, they make sure that you can't get out where you're supposed to get out. They make sure no food gets in. They make sure that nobody's taking care. And so the only thing that's left after a while, you finish eating everything, then you eat stuff that you normally wouldn't eat. Then you start looking around, what's left to eat except each other? We done took care. See, did you see the context of everything we read so far? Where they done took care of you. They took your money out. They took your currency away from you. They took your mindset away from you. They took your thought process away from you. They took your heart away from you. They took your language away from you. They took your name away from you. They took what you value as marriage away from you. Now, what's left except to mess up the next generation? That what everybody's done to you to say that I'm over you, I'm the boss of you, I'm the leader of you. Now I'm going to do it to the next generation. Somebody messed me over when I was a child, and I'm afraid for what could happen to any of these children. So guess what? I'm gonna make sure that I control the next generation, because if I can control them, I can serve them. But you can't control what you serve, and you can't serve what you can control. I'm fighting for these babies out here. How so? You controlling them? Are you controlling the mother? Are you telling her she has to do this in order for your children to be better? You controlling the father? Do you use the mother against your children? Do you use the father against your children? Unprepared. Unprepared. No quaff. La quaff. Thank you for the love. Or la quaff even. So toward her son, toward her, I'm sorry. And so it'll do that. So that's what men are doing, right? Wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in all thy gates. Verse 56. So now the unprepared man or the tender man gives way to what? The unprepared woman or the tender woman. What is the tender woman? The tender and delicate women among you. So delicate. Delicate usually would mean, so delicate is supposed to be, right? Just like the man is delicate and tender, the woman delicate and tender. So it's supposed to be, or actually, let me make sure. Hold on. I'm sorry. The man is not listed as delicate. Sorry. The woman is listed as delicate. Now, if you don't realize this, it's using the word delicate in Proverbs. It'll use the word weaker vessel. If something's more delicate, or therefore by definition more weak, then that means that it's more precious. It has more value, right? If something is more precious or delicate, yeah, it needs to be protected, right? So it's more valuable. So the sister who's number one need, what's our sister's number one need? Sisters, obviously, once again, exceptions to every rule, but for most women, their number one need is going to be what? Is going to be what? Security, protection, right? I'm weaker in that sense. I'm valuable in that sense. Like, protect the womb, protect who I am. Make sure that you're there to make sure that our sons and that our brothers and that our confidants and that our countrymen are there to protect us, right? So here's the woman who is, it says she is tender. Now she's unprepared and she's delicate. She should be taken care of. She should be protected because of her value to us, right? So when you see a sister wilding out, she's not trained, she's not thought of as valuable. And so when she's not treated as valuable and protected as valuable, then she does what things, or somebody who thinks they're not valuable does. They just, once again, show their nakedness. They hunger and thirst after just about anything. They want in everything in their life because there's no protection, even for their seed. So they've got to do what they got to do. If that means they got a prostitute, don't get mad at the prostitute. The prostitute started out as somebody who was waiting for somebody to value them and protect them, and nobody would. And the pimp said that he would, as long as she gave up her body. So she was willing to be naked for the pimp. Right? How you doing, Ernestine? That's being part of the community. Right? I'm just saying, you get mad at her, but you don't think about what got her in that position. What would make her even want to be pimped out or think that she's better? Now she thinks she's better because she got away from the pimp, and she's hooking for herself. And she's like, well, at least I hook for myself. And it's like, you still hooking though. But according to what she came out of, non-security, hey, at least somebody's securing me, even if it's me, even though I'm still what? Presenting my nakedness and doing all this other stuff. How do you connect with the community? I think, Shoe Queen, I think I tried to reach out to you through DM. So check out your DM, see if I reached out or not. I've been trying to be a lot better at that and making sure that we're reaching out to everybody. And then from there, we can connect, and then we'll make sure that we have you contact somebody else. And some prayerfully, depending on where you're located, we can have somebody speak to you. Who's there. How you doing, Takwa? And how you doing, Sister Denise? So she's tender. She's supposed to be delicate. She's supposed to be protected because she's valuable. She's worth more than rupees if she's a wife. She's worth more than money, more than cash flow. But she's unprepared and she's not protected anymore. So now, right, those who are unprotected, the women unprotected amongst us and unprepared, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness. In other words, she's in a position where she doesn't even want to walk anymore. She doesn't even want to leave him, and she doesn't even want to do certain things. She's afraid to go this way or that way. Normally, in her normal situation, she would be protected, so she would be okay going wherever she went. But because she's not protected, she's not really okay with this stuff. Doesn't know what direction to go. Dealing with all types of frustration and depression and sickness and angst and anxiety and all this different stuff. She doesn't know which direction to go because there's no there's no environment, there's no men that are willing to step up and say, bare minimum, could somebody at least stand up? And all these men that are talking trash about us or on social media, can there be a man out here that comes out and says the Bible says that I have value? Like it's cool that there's men out here that are doing some of that, but I don't need the next version of Derek Jackson. I don't need this. I don't need somebody trying to get with me. I don't need somebody that's trying to just take my money. Can somebody just come out here and say we deserve to be protected? And the whole bunch of people come out here and say, no, you don't. No environment. We gave our environment away earlier in this. And so since we gave that environment away earlier, there is no environment to where real men are being trained up anymore. But time out, devil. And now is a new time. 400 years has been finished. And it's time for us to start developing this new code, learning this new code, training men in this new code, training women what it is to be wives, training men what it is to be husbands, training women what it is to be mothers, training men what it is to be fathers, so that they stop having a dating mentality, which is should be attached to that expiration date of the 400 years. And we will get back into marriage and what is deserved as far as marriage. How you doing, Kent? Do Grand Rising to you. We don't protect them. We don't have an environment for it. She normally wouldn't have to do that, but now she's afraid to let her foot even touch the ground. And so because of this, now it's a person who should be her protector. What does it say? It says her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom. The person who should be in her arms, hugged, affection. Number one need is protection or security. Number two need is what? Affection. You should be in a position to where the person who you're coming to, who's supposed to give security, also gives affection. But because you lack those things, now the person who you should be hugged up on now becomes the very person who you are against. Tell me when this doesn't sound. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Black men ain't nothing. I don't need no man for I mean, I tried to find a good man, but there ain't no good man to find. Why can't I find somebody that loves me for me? These men want us to be submissive, but they don't know what it is to be submissive under us. I'm tired of submitting to a man. I mean, this is the word. It told you this is where we were gonna end up. I'm the baddest bee. Somebody gonna come out with a song to be able to get your money called Miss Independent. Like this is what happened because the man is out of position because the community gave up what they were supposed to do. There's no environment. Now the woman is out of position and she's doing things from an unprepared, unsecure place. So we have insecure women because we don't have secure men. If we had a secured man, we'd have a secure man. If we had a secure man, he would want to make sure that anything attached to him is secured. And therefore, we have insecure society and we have an insecure wife who gives birth to an insecure child who starts the same thing all over again because there's no security in our community. We have not secured a community. We haven't even secured a mindset for a community. A positionless man, a positionless woman is going to be a fool. You don't have to say amen. That's real. A positionless man or a positionless woman, you're going to be a fool. Salah. So the tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the foot of her foot upon the ground, or delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and then the Willie Lynch thing, and toward her son. Because you see your husband or you see his father, you see them in your son. So you better try to figure out how to make this husband thing work, or at least to appreciate men. If you don't, if the husband thing's already done and gone, it is what it is. But you better find a way to make sure that somebody, a father figure or something, or at least a respect of men, because however you think of men, you're training your son to be the same. Oh, I didn't train him. However you think of men, I promise you, if I look at your son, I promise you there's some things in there that he has of his father, whether I know his father or not. I promise you, without knowing, without talking to him, there's some things that he does that if you be honest, it reminds you of his father. And not just his look, his mannerisms, the way he talks, the way that he can't help it because it's his DNA. It's the DNA in him. That's the way Yahweh created it to be. There's a DNA memory that he has to be able to do. And because the father has not been in his life, guess what? That thing, no matter how much you wanted to teach it, you can't deal with it because it's something that he needs. Now, I'm not saying the father is always because the mother doesn't want the father around. The father sometimes is a jerk, doesn't want to be around, and whatever happens, happens, right? But I'm saying if you're going to take it to where we don't make sure that mothers and fathers need to come together on this, I'm just telling you, if you're not going to take it to where mothers and fathers aren't going to come together, there's some things, I don't care how smart you are, how well-meaning you are, whatever, there's some things you're not going to be able to teach that boy, mama, because you're not daddy, period. There's some things that you're not going to be able to teach your daughter because you're not daddy, because your daughter going to be looking at daddy to see who she's going to marry. And guess what? Your son is going to be looking at mama to see who he going to marry. You better try to find a way to make this thing work, or you're going to keep this same generational curse going. Yeah. Tilt your head, glare the same. You give a look, like apparently my son does this a lot, or just something similar to it when he doesn't comprehend what's going on. And when I see it, I know to look. If I get on my son, people be like, why are you getting on him about that? I'm getting on him about that because you don't comprehend. See, when I do that, I know that leads to this kind of thought process, and I'm ready to do da 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 da. So even though he only 7, y'all don't know, but see, if he does that at 17, y'all have a problem with it because I know what comes with that at 17. I did it at 7. I did it at 17. Heck, I did it at 27. And when I wasn't careful, I'll be honest with you, I did it at 37. Okay. And so when I see it, look, I know you don't like it, but there's some things that you're not going to see because you're not me. See, I'm actually getting back to the knowledge of myself. And so since I'm not separated from myself, I have to be honest about this stuff. So here we are again. So verse 57. I'm sorry, no, hold on. Her eye shall be toward the evil of the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter also. Willie Lynch, like we were just saying, you're going to teach them to be in reverse roles because it's reverse. The men have become tender and delicate, and the woman's just supposed to be out here tender, strong black women. Isn't it amazing that men are out here saying she's a strong black woman, and at the same time we're saying, hey, listen to my emotions. Now, we should listen to men's emotions. Thank you for the love. We should listen to men's emotions. But isn't that amazing that we don't say, hey, we're going to get back to being strong and let's make our men strong. And we're going to make sure that our women are protected. Instead, though, strong black women don't need protection. And therefore, she gets with a man. She says he got to bow down because she protects herself. Therefore, she'll protect him. Baby girl, you ain't supposed to protect me. That's not how it works. I'm not saying you can't protect my heart and protect them, but hear what I'm saying. You're supposed to be the one that feels secure. And I need respect. My security is your respect. If you respect what I do, then I feel secure. If I secure you, then you'll feel like you're respected. Isn't that the way it goes? Stay in righteousness, right? Stay in your lane. So because of this, because it's reverse roles, this is what it says about our sisters. It says, and toward going towards, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet. Because you're supposed to give birth on a birthing stool, and the baby's supposed to come out. You're supposed to squat when the baby comes out, right? Some of y'all saw the birthing stool, so y'all know I was telling the truth. As those of you who were watching on the watch party with us, y'all have seen the birthing stool, right? So y'all remember the birthing stool. Pastor Kofi was telling the truth, right? Y'all not supposed to give birth on your back. You're supposed to give birth squatting down on the stool, right? Okay, but the one and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children, which she shall bear, for she shall eat them. So now she's turning on them because of the siege. Nothing else to do, nowhere else to go. They've cut off your food. They cut off your supply. They cut off your culture. They've cut off your husbands. So now what's left? Only the children are left to eat. You're going to mess them up too. Which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all, secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. But then this is where it gets really bad, y'all. Verse 58, right? He gives you a warning, and we still don't heed it. He said, you are your wife and daughter's warrior king. Your son is the warrior prince. Amen. So verse 58, if thou wilt not observe to do all the words, here it is again. This is what he said in Deuteronomy 28, verse 1. We could have had the blessings, but now we in the curses. Deuteronomy 28, verse 58. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name. What is the name? See, in your Bible, once again, they hid the name. When the truth is replaced in silence, everybody doesn't act like they replace the truth, then silence is a lie. In your Bible, it says, all caps, the Lord thy God. But what would have it said? Yahweh Elohim. That's the name, the authority, the culture. That's the name, the authority, the culture. That's the name, the authority, the culture, right? Kingdom. If thou will not hearken. Yahweh Elohim. Verse 59 says, the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful. You think wonderful means great. You're like, oh, that's so wonderful. No, wonderful means like people will be full of amazement at what's about to happen, right? Like when you read up on stuff they did to us, it's almost like you almost have to separate yourself from yourself if you're not careful. Because when you realize you break down, you get angry, you want to hit somebody, you start crying. Your heart starts beating when you realize what they did to your people. When your people say stuff like I've said this before, we had somebody in our family who's long gone and passed away, a great elder in our family who used to teach, and she would go to teach people. And when she would go to teach people, sometimes, and this is, in one of those country places, and she would go to teach people in there, one of the places with just dirt roads and nobody know what's going on. And it might be because she wanted her the next generation to be taught. She was a teacher. So in order to make sure she taught them, She had to walk to the school for a long, long time. No protection, right? Her husband had to work. He was tender. He was unprepared. They weren't in a place where she could be protected. But she wanted to make sure the next generation learned. She might get raped on the way there or the way back or both. And guess what she had to do? She had to still teach them babies. No time to heal. No time to deal with this. You see the code, how this stuff is working to where you're being taught to go ahead and be strong no matter what, no protection. To hear that story, I mean, when I heard that, I didn't tear up in front of the person when I heard it. But man, that was tough for me to deal with. Person that you always see always had a smile on their face, all this stuff. And you're like, that's what you went through every day. And I've never seen you not smile. Now, talk to their children, and they'll say that, well, mama would do this, mama would do that, right? But I never seen a time where there wasn't a smile on their face. But that's what you went through just to make sure that people like me could be educated. How dare anybody? That's when you realize. See, when you get into that and you start breaking the code, they start learning the code of the things that they hid from you, and the things we hid from ourselves because we still haven't gone through proper psychological evaluation of what we've gone through. When you see this stuff, that's when it rises up in you that you say, I will become a protector. Anybody who decides to go against that woman when she went through that for me, or that woman's daughter, or that woman's granddaughter, or that woman's great granddaughter, whatever the case might be, anyone who would decide to come against that woman, I got something for you. See, that's when you become the protector. See, when you realize, when you acknowledge that the elephant in the room is there, and you hear and you say, instead of me saying why I won't listen to you and why we should be against each other and why we should be a kingdom divided against itself, instead of not standing, you know what? I now I understand. If the standard is that you were willing to sacrifice yourself like that on a daily basis, if necessary, to make sure people got an education. I'm not saying it happened daily. I'm just saying the possibility of that was daily. There's another guy, matter of fact, you guys know this person. He's said this out in public, so I'll say this out in public. Dr. Laya Africa. Dr. Laya Africa, who's gone and passed on for what, like 2 years now, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. Um, maybe it was even last year, I can't remember. But he talked about his grandmother. And so, he's in his 80s at this point, 70s, 80s in this point. And he's talking about his grandmother. And his grandmother, was born a slave. And so he's going to school and he's learning about psychology, different things like that, right? And so his so as his grandmother is going to school, um I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah. So no. So he's going to school. He comes back and he's saying all this stuff. And his grandmother listens to him. Oh, look at you talk. You just so educated and all that and everything. And literally use the word educated. Some of us used to actually say it like that because we weren't educated, properly or whatever, right? But they were the ones that made it through so we could become educated. But anyway, she's listening to him. She's so proud. She's kind of making fun of him a little bit because she's thinking that he got something wrong with him. And so he says, yeah, they're teaching us this and that, and they're teaching us how to deal with people. And especially, people get like, even dealing with stuff like if somebody gets raped, they're telling us how to ask questions to help them get better. And she goes, what? And he's like, what? Like, yeah, grandma, they're teaching us how to do this and talk to people when women get raped and blah, blah, and this and that. She goes, what? Like, yeah, if somebody gets raped, we ask them questions and help them to get better and blah, blah. She said, child, that ain't nothing. And then it broke his heart. He said, when he heard her say this, he said, child, she said, child, that ain't nothing. She was like, if something like that happened to you, all you got to do is just get up and wipe yourself off and keep on going. Now, he said he was hurt. That's his grandmama. That's what grandmama had to go through. Yeah. She got up. She wiped herself off. And she kept on going. And he lived, right? We act like this is a long, long time ago. He lived until like 2-3 years ago. Right? So when you learn this, when you realize how unprepared and how tender we are and how delicate things should be, how our sisters should be protected and stuff, and you are warned by Yahweh Elohim what's going on, and you see this stuff, it gets to a place where at some point you got to ask yourself, why won't you speak up? Or why do you think that it's okay to tell a woman if she says that she's been raped? Why is it that you're mad if we say we should believe them? Now, I'm not saying believe them straight up and not act like you should see what actually happened and get the facts and then make a decision based off of what actually happened. But to act like we shouldn't believe anything they have to say, even if there was some, yes, there might have been somebody else who lied about something like that, but to act like we should therefore believe that none of them, thank you for the love, appreciate it, we should act like none of them went through the experience. That's when you got to start asking yourself, are you still tender? Are you still unprepared? Are you still in a situation where you don't realize that's a curse? If you're gonna be a code breaker, you're becoming a code breaker to become a curse breaker. Will you become that? Right? So your plagues will become amazing to people, wonderful. Like, how in the world could that happen? And the plagues of thy seed, your children, even great plagues, they're gonna get worse. And of long continuance, they're gonna get longer and longer. And sore sickness. Now you're gonna be dealing with your body issue, right? Your body's gonna fall apart. And they shall cleave. I'm sorry. And of long continuance, right? Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Kemet, all the plagues that you got delivered, the plagues that were put on people to deliver you will now be the plagues that will be put on you. It's not interesting that you've gone through. What's some plagues that you've gone through? You just go, well, I ain't never seen no blood with water turn to blood. Yeah, but can you drink water now in certain places? Come on, diaspora. Are there places that you can't even drink the water? Are there places where amphibians and frogs and stuff have gotten out of control? And where now you got all types of diseases coming from it? Do some research. You might be surprised. Are there places where it's like the bugs or like certain situations or certain diseases are like the dust of the ground? Are there things that are causing your people to break out and all types of stuff? I mean, I'm just right. Does it seem like the sun doesn't stay up the way it used to? And people keep trying to lie to you about what the sky or what the Hawaii or what the Van Allen belt and all this stuff is. I mean, I'm just saying. Are there people out here still saying we're gonna kill you like we killed your firstborn before? Are there any firstborn sons not making it? Are there any people still not keeping commandments and not putting blood on the doorpost so when the angel of death comes by, your baby's not protected? Still not following the commandments? I'm just the same plagues, the same sicknesses that you got delivered from, that you followed the law. You started to get back to law. Moses showed up and he started giving y'all law. He started saying, this is what the Most High says. Whatever the Most High decrees, it shall be established. He started off with law. Y'all think Mosaic law started in Exodus chapter 20. He started off coming back with law when he repeated what the Most High told him to repeat. But because we won't repeat it anymore, going back to Romans chapter 10, verse 8, we talked about it. Because we won't repeat it anymore, now we can't even confess properly. Romans chapter 10, verse 9. And therefore, we don't believe our own report, the report that was given to us by the Most High, reported by the Most High through his servants for generations. We don't care. Verse 62, and ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice, the phone, the phone call, the voice of Yahweh Elohim. That's what the word voice comes from, by the way. In the Greek, it comes from the word voice. So when you answer the phone, you answer the voice. So when it says you want to answer the voice, think about your phone is ringing and Yahweh's ready to save you, but you won't answer it. That's why many are called, invited. The word called, kletos, means invited. So when you have a phone call, you're having a voice invitation. Many are invited to heed the voice, but few are chosen. Few will actually pick up the phone and then do what's asked by the person on the other end. So you shall be few in number, whereas you were as the stars of the multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of Yahweh Elohim. Verse 63, and it shall come to pass, Yahweh rejoiced over you to do righteous and to multiply you. So Yahweh will rejoice over you to destroy you. Now we think rejoice means to be happy. Rejoice means to leap. So it shall come to pass that the same Yahweh that has to obey his law for the positive and the negative. So he has to leap to the contract, the covenant. If you do, then I'll do. If you do this, then I'll do this. If you don't do this, then I'll do this as well. So he has to leap, rejoice to the contract. If he leapt to it when you were doing righteousness, he's got to leap to it, rejoice when you do negative things. So he will leap to making sure you are destroyed and you are brought to naught. That means to nothing, lost everything, brought to naught, and ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. Everywhere you keep trying to go, we're gonna start this. We're gonna start Tulsa. We're gonna start Rosewood. We're gonna do Philadelphia. We're gonna create Chicago. We're gonna do all the everywhere you go, you shall be plucked. Because everything that's not my father, Yahshua said this, everything that my father did not plant should be plucked up by the root. See, my father tried to plant law and righteousness, and you didn't want to follow law and righteousness. So now everywhere you tried to go, they try to circumvent the curses, trying to make sure, okay, I'll go here. Hey, Israel says, no problem, we'll leave. We're tired of what the Assyrians did. The 9.5, or what we call the 10 tribes, I say 9.5 for a reason, but the 10 tribes or whatever, they basically leave and they say, okay, we gone, we ain't coming back. And everywhere they went, look where they went. Where they scattered to when they said, we're gone, we ain't coming back. Second Esdras chapter 13, verses 40 through 45. They left and they went everywhere. And when they left and they went everywhere, you go, oh man, that's cool that they left and they went. They wanted to worship there. Yeah, look at all the places that they went. Didn't the curse follow them? Everywhere that they went, the curses came. They pursued them, as we read yesterday, right? They shall overtake thee. It says the blessings will overtake thee in Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 14, but in the curses, Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68, they'll come and they'll overtake thee as well. Verse 64, and Adon will scatter thee among all people, from Aleph, from one end of the earth even to the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods. You won't serve Elohim, but you will serve other deities, deus. And even in your Bibles, even if you have God in there, it has a lowercase g, meaning that it's not the same. Yep, from the days of Kim until now, still running. You will serve these other deities as if they're your own. You will call out to him. You will cry out to him. God is not even your deity. Matter of fact, you don't have a deity because a deity is different than a God. And a God and a deity are different than a nature. And a nature is different than Elohim. And some people would say that Allah is different than Elohim. Like we don't even know the cultural difference. We just hanging on to whatever, hanging on to anything that'll get us out these curses, teaching our own children where we're tearing them up now too. Anything we can do, because we just got to get out of here. We're under siege. When you're under siege, you don't live free. But what if I told you that you could start obeying the law and the siege would have none effect on you? Matter of fact, you would be able to walk out. And just as Yahshua walked through the crowd and they couldn't touch him, they couldn't get their hands on him because it wasn't his time yet. You be able to go into the wilderness. Let them go ahead and they took it already. Let them go ahead and take what they took. Let them be right. You be righteous. You go out into the wilderness. Revelation 12 says we can still go out into the wilderness. We're in Deuteronomy 28 again. Deuteronomy 28, we're at verse 64. So he shall scatter you among all the people from one end of the earth to the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods or other people outside of Elohim. Fake versions, by the way, because anything that's not Elohim is fake, right? As far as these deities and spirits and gods, etc. Because that, I'm sorry, which neither you or your fathers have known, even wood and stone. Hey, how you doing, Aphrodisia? Even what? Even wood and stone, yo. Even wood and stone will carve out the Buddha. We'll carve out Jesus. We'll paint him. We'll have iconoclasts coming and say that Cesare Borgia is the Christ now. We'll tell you that people who are not Israel are Israel, and get mad when the Bible, when the Torah, when even the Talmud, as much as it's not our culture, even the Talmud will speak to those things. Right. But let's keep on going. Let's keep on going. Verse 65, we're almost there. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. Just like our sisters' feet didn't have no rest. We won't have any rest. We won't be able to stop. We won't be able to put ourselves there. We'll always be anxious, always looking all over the place. Why? But Adon shall give thee there a trembling heart. Your passion you won't be able to figure out your passion because you're always afraid. You're passionate about being afraid now. Passionate about being afraid. Passionate about, oh, you remember when I used to get whipped? Passionate about being afraid. You remember when we had to run from the cops? Passionate about being afraid. You remember when I almost got caught cheating? So wicked. And in somebody else's culture and told that we're absolutely nothing. Right? Passionate about it. Have no rest. But Jehovah shall give thee a trembling heart and failing eye, or failing of eyes. You won't have the same vision. You won't even be able to see what he has for you. And sorrow of mind, always sorry about what could have happened. If only my family had done, if only we had come, if only we had done this, if only we have more joy about the sorrow than we are about coming out of the sorrow. I'm not saying we shouldn't admit the sorrow. Admit the sorrow. That's a problem, is that we don't admit it. But now what's the next step to get us to stop only thinking about what is sorrowful? Verse 66, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. Verse 67, in the rising, bakwar, right? Or what you would say the morning, but morning is from that God morning, that morning of the gods thing. So in the rising, bakwar, thou shalt say, would Elacham it were even, and at even thou shalt say, would Elacham it were the rising, for the fear of thine heart, thine passion, wherewith thou shalt fear or respect, and for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. You wish that you could see. You wish you had the vision back. You wish that no matter what's going on, whether things are bright or whether things are dark, I can't ever seem to get this thing right. I can't ever seem to see what's going there. And verse 68, it tells us, At and Adon shall bring thee into Kemet again. You'll be in, what does Kemet represent? Bondage. What does Kemet represent? Slavery. What does Kemet represent? Building extreme things for somebody else. And then having your story wiped off to where we have to go and look really carefully to see, oh, that's an Israelite slave on the wall. And those hieroglyphics of the Egypticos. Oh, wow, wait a minute. You did the first heart surgery? Wow. Why don't we talk about you? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wow. You created the city of Chicago? Why don't we talk about that? Oh, wait a minute. You mean in Illinois there's a pyramid there? The biggest pyramid in North America? Wow, I didn't even know there were pyramids. Oh, wait a minute. In Mississippi, there's more pyramids in Mississippi and Georgia and places like that than there are any other place in North America. Wow. I never knew. But wait a minute. A lot of people who are married into high prominent positions that don't love themselves, actually they used to be former natives in Canada, but they were stolen from their family as children, and they were actually raped and pillaged and stuff even when they were little. Oh wow, I didn't know you built that. Benjamin Banneker, Big Ben, Washington D.C. I didn't know. Wait a minute, Martha Washington, she was somebody who passed for white. I didn't know. Like, you'll be embedded in all this stuff and have no clue, no vision of yourself. And it says you'll be back in Kemet, building all these vast things for all these people, right? We talked about this, a couple days ago or yesterday? Wait a minute. The man right across from the Hebrew church that was built in Savannah, Georgia, right after they got out of slavery, they built a Hebrew church and they put all these Hebrew characters all over the place, and they knew their language. They spoke 6 languages. And when you go right across the street from it, I don't know if it's right across, but right down the street from it, basically, like, you'll see a big little statue there in the middle, and they'll have these white people shooting a gun, but it's got this black guy on the drums. And when you read it, it says, oh, this was a guy who was Igbo, and this was a guy who, after he finished fighting for slavery over here in America, or fighting for freedom in the Revolutionary War, 1776 in America. So 1776 through whatever. I'm sorry, I don't have the dates in my head right now. But fought the Revolutionary War, finishes fighting the Revolutionary War, and then as soon as he finishes fighting, he's still poor, broke, destitute, goes over to Haiti, and then helps Haiti to become independent, and then amongst his own people becomes one of the Haitian kings. Right? But we don't see ourselves in it. So he'll bring you back into bondage, back into Kemet. And it says this time he's going to do it with ships. And it's always interesting. Everybody says I don't even believe that there were ships that went at all. Stop. Like, there's ships that went all over the place. Now, are we going to act like some of us are not indigenous to here? And by the way, even before the slave ships were going on, are we going to act like African and indigenous people to the Americas were not coming back and forth and spending time with each other? Of course. But to act like the Atlantic slave trade doesn't exist, while we know there's ships in the water. People say, where's all the ships at? There's ships in the water right now. People say, well, where's all the evidence of? There's people who made monuments of the people who jumped off the boats down in the water. But where's all the evidence of this stuff right now? You talking about Kemet, and you talking about Africans and indigenous people and stuff like that. Where's the evidence of all this stuff, them coming together, knowing each other? In the bottom of the water in Cuba right now, there's 3 pyramids down there. In Choctaw, more so Tissalagi or Cherokee land, there's Hebrew writing that they find that dates back past white people even being here. Oh, by the way, when you go over there too, that when you look at that, the original name that now translates to Cherokee or Tissalagi and Taino and stuff like that. Well, not Taino, but Tissalagi and Cherokee. When you look at that original name, it actually means the people of Yah. Like, this is your heritage, but you don't see yourself in it. And they brought you over here on ships, but people are out here trying to tell you there were no ships. And that's why people even tell you, oh yeah, Egypt was really here. And we get that from colonial construct white people who were lying, who were Mormon. And the Mormons were coming from this theology, right? Joseph Smith, who got killed, by the way, by people that were like, you wilding out too much even for us. But he was so racist, he said that all the children of Israel were American, which he meant they were white. So Moors, and I'm a Moor myself, but a lot of our Moorish brethren, they hear that and they're looking for anything to say that everything has to be us. And so they even want to say that the Mormon religion comes from them. And some of them you try to say Joseph Smith was white, was actually not even white, he was black. But look at Joseph Smith's teachings. He literally said that basically there was the devil fought against the Mormon Jesus, not Jesus, but the Mormon Jesus, which is a whole other fabrication besides Jesus being a fabrication. Now he fought against the Mormon Jesus, and the Mormon Jesus and the devil both had great points, but the devil happened to lose. Elohim, who was their father, who was just an alien, who was a really righteous person, who took a wife with him and he died, and because they believe in deism, he became a deity, and therefore he started having spirit babies with his wife, because that's all a wife's supposed to do in the afterlife according to them. And Jesus, Mormon Jesus, and the Mormon devil, I guess, had this fight. And when they had this fight, the Mormon Jesus won. So everybody that fought on his side became white people. Everybody that fought for the devil became demons that couldn't get a body. And if you were a coward and didn't fight for anybody, you got dark skin. Like, that's the same mentality that brings Kemet and tries to say it's got to be over here. Right. But that's because, once again, we were taken away. And so we're looking for anything. I get it. We're looking for anything we can to establish who we are, because we have nothing at a certain point. Right. That's why even when it comes to Mormons, they have a term, white and delightsome. White and delightsome. We hope that you can become white and delightsome. So black folk, if you don't know that, black people could not, even if they went to Mormon churches, even if they had some kind of low positions, they couldn't even go into certain rooms in the Mormon church until the 1990s, when somebody finally decided they could. But they were like, you can become white and delightsome. If you're a white person, you can live a righteous life and you can get spirit babies. But if you're black, well, you come from people, you might not remember your past life, but you could have fought with the Mormon Jesus, you could have fought with the devil, but since you were a coward, you can't have a body. I mean, I'm sorry, you can't have a you can't have a white body. You have to have a black body. Excuse me. That's what they taught. Yeah, I mean, this is stuff there. But we were brought over in ships. They took our history. We went back into Kemet. We live in bondage, and there's black folk. That still is Gladys Knight still is either Gladys Knight or Aretha Franklin. It's not Aretha. Aretha died anyway, but yeah, I think it's Gladys Knight. I played with Gladys Knight, and she did a Mormon church thing. I went to a service that they did or whatever, and I went more so to just see Gladys Knight, thinking she gonna give us some gospel stuff like that. The whole thing was her talking about how she needed to bow down, and her white husband, she learned how to submit, and she's so glad for more. Like she was a slave. She was a house Negro. That's what she was. That's what she sounded like. Right? So he'll bring you back on ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. By the way, what? By the way the Most High said. It's going to happen exactly how I said. And didn't it happen exactly how he said? Thou shalt see it no more again. Right? You're not even going to see these things again, especially these generations. Till what? Till we become curse breakers. But first we got to become code breakers. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. You're going to be sold by your enemies, and it's going to get to a place to where you're going to lose so much value that now nobody even buys into you. Nobody will buy your business idea. Nobody will buy into you saying, hey, help us. Nobody will buy into your thought process as far as reparations. They won't buy into any of it. No man will buy you, not even our own. And that's the end of chapter 28. Just one more verse, though, just to make sure that you guys see this part. Chapter 29, verse 1, last thing for today. These are the words of the covenant. These are the words of the covenant. Now, I know there's going to be more words to come, but remember, there were no such thing as chapters when the Bible was originally written, or the Tanakh was originally written, or the epistles, the scrolls, etc., the Savah, the Kefer, etc., was originally written. There were no verses. There were no chapters. It read as one. So as soon as you finish the church, it says, this is the covenant. This is what we signed up for. You know, like in our culture, if you signed up for something, you would say stuff like you would have in the contract blessings that would come from it. But if you disobeyed the contract, you also had curses that you would speak. And then when you signed it, you would even sign it. Sometimes you would look at the other person and you would say stuff like, let it be done unto me. That's what aman means, or what you say, amen, or amin, right? Aman is saying literally, let it be done unto me. I agree with this contract. I agree with you quickly. That's why if you become adversarial, that's why Yahshua says when he's talking about debts, and he's talking about stuff like that, he says, agree with your adversary quickly, or else if you don't, somebody's going to come to you and they're going to lock you up, and they're going to get the uttermost farthing. They're going to get you to every single penny they can squeeze out of you. So you might as well make sure that, hey, if you wrote a contract, if you're in this covenant, make sure that you get this as soon as possible and agree with your enemy and do it quickly. That's in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5. I believe verse in between verses 21 and 26, somewhere in between there. Agree quickly. Don't even let it. Y'all got this contract. You're this covenant. You're Yehovah. You're Yashda. You are supposed to be this. Hey, before we keep finding ways to get away from each other, let's come together quickly, or else somebody's gonna come and lock us up, and they're gonna take everything to the uttermost farthing. You might as well get it together with your brother as soon as possible. So thank you guys for being on. We appreciate you. We honor your time. We lift you up. Please lift up Damar Hamlin, as well as many other people. Still praying for the Parrish family as well. And I believe that's all I have. Yes, so we'll be back with some more code breakers tomorrow. Yes, I will be back tomorrow. It'll probably be the last Wednesday for quite some time for me. Prayerfully, so I can get a break or whatever, unless I have to step in as a replacement. But yeah, so we will be on tomorrow on the Rising. We'll be on this evening, and for those who are part of the Patreon Kingdom, we're just part of the family right now. We're all watching watching the throne together. It should be the last watch party this evening, and once we finish this, then on Saturday for our SOC meeting, we'll be able to go through it together and talk through some things and look at some things or whatever. So prayerfully, you guys will be ready for that. We appreciate you. We thank you. We honor you. We lift you up. We have much information for you. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, just look in the description with the video, or even if you're on the podcast, so you can always look in the description with the video to find out ways to get in contact with us, to learn what's going on, to see the calendars, the classes, just to let you know. because I realized that it was a little too short to tell you when the classes were. The classes will not start this Monday coming up. They will start, so which I believe that's January the 9th. They will start January the 16th or whatever the third Monday. We were shooting for the second Monday. It's not going to happen that way, but we'll have it the third Monday because we also didn't make sure that the update was on the calendar in time, and it would be bad for me to not have that stuff set up for you. So we'll make sure that stuff is finished being updated today. And once that stuff is finished being set up, we'll be able to go into making sure that we can talk about those things. But as far as different things we're doing, tassels, stuff you can help for us to fundraise, getting land, being about health, things that we can do for our children, just contacting us in general, etc. We would love to be able to get more, from you guys in that regard, and hopefully be able to be there one for another. So if you'd like to be able to reach out to us or contact us for any reason or whatever, reach out to us. If you're on TikTok, we're going to do our normal sign off. So as the music is playing, you can feel free to go ahead and, as the music is playing, you can feel free to go ahead and participate in, giving us your shout out, where you stay, something like that, let us know where you are so we can make sure that if somebody wants to reach out to you that's from the community or myself, we'll be able to make sure that we get back to you ASAP. But we're thankful to you. We honor you. We appreciate you. And we look forward to many great things happening, and continue to happen in your life. So thank you for walking this walk with us, talking this talk with us. This is part 2 of a series. It's going to keep on going, and we are appreciative of you being with us. We'll be on Kofi_42 tonight at 8. Watch party will start at 7. If you're on and you should be able to see that through Google Calendar invite. If you like the link and we don't have your information, you got to reach out to us beforehand. Let us know. If you're part of the Patreon kingdom, you'll get a link later on. And we're appreciative of all those things again. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We honor the king and queen in each and every one of you, even if you're not living inside that kingdom or queendom yet. We appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, once again on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we're thankful and grateful for everything that you guys are participating in and being a part of. So thank you again. We appreciate you so very much. We're going to get ready to do our TikTok shout out on here. So if you want to shout out where you're from and just listen to some praise and worship music with us and be able to get a little bit more in the environment, we thank you. We appreciate you for doing such. And we look forward to talking to you guys very soon again. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, Yahshua, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace.